Y'all still here? I have no idea what just happened. Y'all couldn't hear? Miss Tom, you couldn't hear? Miss Tom, you couldn't hear? Not a thing. The whole time you couldn't hear. Wow. Can you? But you can hear now. I guess that's why it kicked out. Oh, wow. You could hear the commercial, but you couldn't hear. Wow. I don't moved on. What is this? So you didn't hear about Will and Jada either? You didn't hear about Diddy trying to get out of Fort Knox? So you didn't hear none of what I said earlier until this thing just kicked out. Wow. Interesting. There's some allegations on Will and Jada coming up next. Oh, wow. I wonder what that was about. Diddy knowing them charges is coming, so he's demanding to be released. Oh, wow. I'm trying to see where to start. Oh, dang it. God, dog. Hold on. Let me go here, because I think they've been having...
Make sure we continue to pay attention to what Ghislaine Maxwell is doing. At the same time, the Trump regime is engaged in a cover-up of her child sex trafficking ring that she was a co-conspirator leading with Jeffrey Epstein. We know the Trump regime is covering up the names of at least 10 other potential co-conspirators that we saw in the files that were released so far. We haven't really seen extensive grand jury material.
Back to the other guy where we left off. Oh, wow. It's so much popping off. Was it this one?
As long as he can keep performing dominance. Every key detail intact. World leaders are few. We are anonymous. We exist for moments like this, when power gets loud because it is scared. This is the story as it happened, rebuilt in plain English with every key detail intact. World leaders are furious, and Donald Trump is driving the United States straight into isolation, escalation, and global backlash. In the account being described, European leaders are no longer speaking about the United States. Under Trump as a trusted ally, they are using the language of threat. They are declaring the United States
Yeah,
under the
it
Trump
started with the
regime to be an
mask.
enemy, an adversary, even what is quoted as a systemic adversary. The segment points to a French general named Nicolas Rachou using that phrase and arguing that
Yeah,
similar
this is the
measures.
one that I was on when I had to go. That I was just playing that y'all didn't hear. There's so much has popped off since then, but okay. Yeah, this is it.
Rachou, he says the USA are now a systemic adversary, and similar measures banning entry into European areas are essential against the United States.
Including banning entry into European areas, are essential against the United States. That is the kind of rhetoric you do not hear between partners unless something has snapped. The story frames it as Europe concluding that Trump's America is not simply difficult, but structurally hostile to the rules that hold alliances together. This escalation is placed alongside a concrete provocation.
The Trump administration will no longer tolerate these egregious acts against extraterritorial censorship. Today, the State Department will take steps to bar leading figures of the global censorship industrial complex from entering the United States. We stand ready and willing to expand this list if others do not reverse course.
The United States State Department has sanctioned European leaders and banned them from entering the United States. In the telling, Europe is not just offended, it is preparing reciprocal action. The claim is that Europe is ready to
go to
answer
war.
Trump's punishments with its own sanctions and restrictions because it sees the U.S. not behaving like a democratic ally, but like a regime demanding compliance. The tone is not diplomatic.
allies.
It is alarmed. It is angry.
He's the
It is Europe
enemy of the-
saying, we
of the
recognize
United
what you are
States.
doing,
It's bottom
and we are
line.
not going to pretend it is normal. Then the story moves to the flashpoint that raises the temperature from diplomatic conflict to something darker.
Hit the like button, y'all.
The segment says Europe
Double
is
tap.
warning that if the United States dares to invade Greenland, as the United States is threatening to do, Europe is prepared to go to war against the United States and Donald Trump. The host frames this as the moment where former top allies are forced to speak firmly. The
Allies
segment says
ready to go to
Europe is
war with
warning
us.
that if the United States dares to invade Greenland, as the United States is threatening to do, Europe is prepared to go to war against the United States and Donald Trump. The host frames this as the moment where former top allies are forced to speak firmly and publicly about being ready to fight the Trump regime. If it crosses that line, whether you interpret that as literal war planning or as rhetorical escalation meant to deter Trump, the message is the same. Europe is telling Trump there is a boundary he does not get to cross, and it is doing so because Trump is speaking like a man who believes territory is a prize, while Greenland dominates the outrage. The segment insists there is a second track running at the same time, the United States meeting with top Russian officials in Miami, allegedly to figure out how to force a surrender upon Ukraine. That contrast is the moral indictment at the heart of the narrative. The U.S. is framed as meeting with Russia in Miami to plot conquest of Ukraine, while simultaneously floating conquest-style talk about Greenland. Europe watching this is depicted as saying enough is enough. The story describes world leaders as absolutely furious at the idea that Trump's America is positioning itself against allies, while engaging Russia as if Russia is a partner. Poland enters the story
Putin
as a
got
clear
something.
example of
He
Europe
can
tightening
blackmail him.
ranks. One of Poland's leaders, described as a deputy prime minister, and the foreign minister, expresses support for the territorial integrity of the allied kingdom of Denmark. The segment emphasizes the line about defending international law and the principle of the inviolability of borders. That framing matters because it shifts the argument away from personality and toward principle. It is not about whether Europe likes Trump. It is about whether the world is going to let a U.S. president talk like borders are flexible whenever it benefits him. France is presented as reinforcing the same message. French President Emmanuel Macron is quoted as saying that in Nuuk, described as the capital of Greenland.
That's the one, Candace, that sued Candace and was losing because his wife is a man, Brigitte.
Is presented as reinforcing the same message. French President Emmanuel Macron is quoted as saying that in Nuuk, Described as the capital of Greenland, he reaffirmed France's unwavering support for the sovereignty and territorial integrity of Denmark and Greenland.
Which is the capital of Greenland. I reaffirmed France's unwavering support for the sovereignty and territorial integrity of Denmark and Greenland. Greenland belongs to its people. Denmark stands as its guarantor. I join my voice to that of Europeans in expressing our full solidarity.
He is described as stating that Greenland belongs to its people, that Denmark stands as its guarantor, and that he joins his voice with Europeans in full solidarity. In the narrative, this is Europe warning Trump directly, do not test us on Greenland. Do not try to turn the Arctic into a Trump property dispute. Ursula von der Leyen, described as the president of the European Union Commission, is then quoted driving the same point into the ground.
A priority to the European Union, and one in which we seek to work with allies and partners. Territorial integrity and sovereignty are fundamental principles of international law. These principles are essential not only for the European Union, but for nations around the world. We stand in full solidarity with Denmark and the people of Greenland.
Arctic security remains a key priority for the European Union, and they
trying to
seek to
start a
work
war.
with allies and partners. Territorial integrity and sovereignty are described as fundamental principles of international law, essential not only for the European Union, but for nations around the world. Full solidarity with Denmark and the people of Greenland. In the segment's tone, this is the EU putting a hand on the table and saying the rules still exist even if Trump behaves like he can bulldoze them. At this point, the host pauses to underline how surreal it is that allies are speaking in these terms. Do you understand what is happening before your eyes, the segment asks. Do you see the stakes being raised? And then it pivots into the question of timing. Why is Trump resurfacing Greenland and Denmark again right now? The segment suggests one reason is distraction, specifically from the Epstein files and what it calls Trump's cover-up. But it also teases that there is another reason people are not covering. In the middle of that, the original flow includes a reminder to subscribe and a reference to the Midas Touch network being attacked, with claims that the Trump DOJ was targeting reporting. In this rewritten version, that promotional request is not repeated, but the placement still matters as part of the original structure, because it shows how the narrative ties geopolitical escalation to domestic information conflict. Belgium is then brought in to widen the European front. Maxime Prévost, described as a European Union foreign relations leader from Belgium, is quoted saying Belgium expresses full solidarity with Denmark and the people of Greenland, and that this principle applies in Ukraine, in the DRC, or in Greenland.
With Denmark and the people of Greenland, be it in Ukraine, DRC, or Greenland, territorial integrity and sovereignty are fundamental principles of international law enshrined in the UN Charter that must be respected by all. So here,
territorial integrity and sovereignty are called fundamental principles of international law enshrined in the UN Charter that must be respected by all. The segment explicitly interprets this as a comparison between what Trump is threatening and what Putin did to Ukraine. It is the host saying Europe is basically comparing Donald Trump to Vladimir Putin. That is the kind of comparison that should embarrass any American leader, but Trump's political brand is built on shamelessness, so embarrassment is not a deterrent.
Putin got
Then
some
the
over
narrative
him.
dives deeper into the Miami thread. Over the weekend, it says additional meetings were held between a Russian delegation and figures described as Russian special envoys, with references to Russian oligarchs like Yuri Yusikov and Kel Dmitriev. Dmitry Peskov, described as Putin's main public relations figure, is said to have announced that there was no breakthrough in the Miami talks and that they should not be viewed as breakthroughs. But the segment claims Russia's priority is obtaining details of U.S. talks with Europe, because Russia wants to invade Europe after taking over Ukraine. The story also claims Russia is trying to figure out how it could take over Donbas in eastern Ukraine, which it cannot conquer militarily. The point the host is making is that Russia is playing a longer game, and Trump is helping it by weakening unity. At the same time, the host emphasizes Trump's posture at home. Trump has been in Palm Beach golfing for the past 4 days, while these talks were taking place in Miami. The implication is that Trump treats crises as background noise, as long as he can keep performing dominance. The segment then offers a darker interpretation of what the Russians were allegedly pitching. Let us take Ukraine, you go after Greenland, and let Xi Jinping take over Asia. A multipolar carve-up where Russia gets Europe, China gets Asia, and the United States gets Greenland, Canada, Mexico, and influence across Central and South America. Whether you see this as literal coordination or as a critique of how Trump's worldview aligns with authoritarian ambitions, the segment's point is that Trump is acting like a man who believes global order is negotiable if it feeds his ego. This is where Trump's Greenland obsession becomes more than talk. The segment says Trump decides he needs a special envoy in Greenland and appoints Jeff Landry, the governor of Louisiana. Landry goes on TV and explains what he thinks his role is. He references the Louisiana Purchase and says Louisiana chose the United States, and then claims that if you go back in time, Greenland actually belongs to the United States. The host reacts with disbelief, noting Greenland has been part of the Kingdom of Denmark for centuries. But the segment's deeper point is not history. It is propaganda. If you repeat a lie long enough on friendly media, it becomes permission for escalation. Landry is shown in one clip being asked what happens next, whether he will travel there, whether negotiations will begin, and noting the Danish Prime Minister does not want to get on board. Landry jokes that everyone in Louisiana wants to go to Greenland for summer, because it gets real hot in Louisiana. Then he says what is amazing is that over a year ago, no one was talking about Greenland, and he claims Russian subs would circle Greenland, and Chinese forces would pluck rare earths out of the Western Hemisphere.
He comes in and says, you know what? The Monroe Doctrine is a real thing. We need to protect America's interests in those countries and territories in the Western Hemisphere. And again, Europe's just ignoring Greenland at the time. I mean, they don't even have first-class status at the UAE.
As an opportunity for Greenland to be invited to an economic table with the United States, which he calls the strongest, most advanced economy in the world. He claims America cares that America is the fastest security route, that it is about an hour away from the United States versus 3 to 4 hours from Europe.
To give them the security and the protection, it's about an hour away from the United States, where it's 3 to 4 hours from the European continent. I think there's a great opportunity here.
He calls it a great opportunity. It is a takeover pitch dressed as partnership. Immediately after that, the segment includes an advertisement break about the holiday credit dip, describing how holiday swiping raises balances and drops credit scores. It promotes smart credit claims patented technology can pinpoint which bills to pay and when to maximize your credit score. Claims an average user can see an increase of 34 points in just 30 days and offers a 7-day trial for $1 at smartcredit.com/Midas and then smartcredit.com/Idas, with a disclaimer that results may vary and are not guaranteed. The abruptness of that ad inside a geopolitical crisis narrative is itself a snapshot of the media ecosystem this story lives in, where serious stakes are sandwiched between sales pitches. A second Landry clip follows. He is asked what argument he will make to the Danes, who are opposed to letting the U.S. come into a territory Denmark has had autonomous control of for hundreds of years.
I guess my main question to you is, what argument will you make to the Danes, who seem to be totally opposed to letting the U.S. come into a territory that they've had autonomous control of going back hundreds of years? What was the case that you'll make to them?
Well, I think our discussion should be with the actual people in Greenland, the Greenlanders.
Landry says the discussion should be with the people in Greenland, asking what they are looking for, what opportunities they have not gotten, and why they have not gotten the protection they deserve. Then he says the United States does not go in trying to conquer anyone or take over anyone's country, that it represents liberty, economic strength, and protection. He references Louisiana history again, saying his family has been there over 300 years. They lived under more flags than anyone in the continental U.S., and they ended up under the U.S. flag, and Louisiana was better for it. This is the rhetorical trick. He denies conquest, while describing a logic that normalizes acquisition. Denmark's foreign minister, Lars Rasmussen, responds by saying they thought they had a U.S. ambassador in Denmark, with whom they would have a relationship throughout the kingdom, that they developed a good working relationship, and then out of nowhere there is a special U.S. presidential representative who, according to himself, is tasked with taking over Greenland. The word out of nowhere is the heart of it. Trump is not operating through normal alliance structures. He is improvising power plays. Trump's own words are then put on the table.
We need Greenland for national security. And if you take a look at Greenland, you look up and down the coast, you have Russian and Chinese ships all over the place. We need it for national security. We have to have it. And he wanted to lead the charge, so we're making him, Marco, today, a special envoy to Greenland. Greenland's a big deal.
He says the U.S. needs Greenland for national security, not for minerals. He claims the U.S. has many sites for minerals and oil, and everything claims the U.S. has more oil than any other country, and claims
Why is he
Russian and
stealing
Chinese
oil from
ships are all
Venezuela
over
then?
Greenland's coast.
It really is. And you know what's amazing is over a year ago, no one was talking about Greenland. Okay. The whole time, Russian subs would circle Greenland. The whole time, the Chinese would pluck rare earths out of the Western Hemisphere. Then all of a sudden, we have the election of
He
President.
repeats that the U.S. has to have it. He announces appointing an envoy, saying Greenland is a big deal. The segment frames this as a straight-up threat, wrapped in national security language, the classic Trump maneuver. Say something outrageous, label it security, dare everyone to resist. Then the story returns to the sanctions contrast.
Talks, the Kremlin says.
Absolutely.
Kremlin spokesperson Dmitry Peskov said that the talks between Russia and the United States in Miami should not be viewed as any breakthroughs. According to him, Russia's main priority now is to obtain details of U.S. talks with Europe.
The United States is sanctioning European leaders while removing sanctions from Russia. Instead of pushing secondary sanctions against Russia,
you
the
letting
segment
out
claims Trump
drug
has been
dealers.
removing most sanctions
Notorious.
against Russia and is now sanctioning Europeans. Rubio is
To
quoted
get,
saying ideologues in Europe have coerced American platforms and punished
El
viewpoints
Chapo
they
them back
oppose, and that the
running.
State Department will bar leading figures of what he calls the global censorship industrial complex from
They took
entering the
credit.
United States.
They took credit for it when they was before the committee. The FBI were bringing down El Chapo, El Mano, the Cindeola. But now Trump is releasing some of those same people that they took credit for when they was before the Senate and the committee. In Congress, asked them, what the hell have y'all been doing? All Cash Patel could bring up is taking down the drugs, taking down the Cindeola cartel. Okay, so why is Trump pardoning Hernandez out of Honduras? Just like he gave back some of them Venezuela, the MS people, when he was making deals with Venezuela. He all over the place. He all over the place.
To expand the list if others do not
Hey,
reverse
Ellis.
course. The segment explains the European Digital Services Act in this context, saying it targets large platforms and demands moderation against misleading behavior and
CCOT.
hate speech, and it frames the U.S. move as attacking Europe while promoting
Yep,
Russia.
that's what I'm trying to
the
tell these
segment
people.
points
They
to
better
Tulsi
stop playing
Gabbard,
over here.
described as the Director of National Intelligence.
They foment fear and hysteria as a way to justify the continuing of the war and their efforts to undermine President Trump's efforts towards peace. And do so specifically in this case in order to try to pull the U.S. military into a direct conflict with Russia, which is ultimately what the EU and NATO want. We cannot allow this
You wake
to
up.
happen. We have to see clearly what's happening before our very eyes and stand united in this cause of peace.
Saying the EU and NATO ferment fear and hysteria to justify continuing the war and undermine Trump's peace efforts, and that they are trying to pull the
He ain't
U.S.
got no
military
peace
into
efforts.
direct conflict with Russia. She calls for unity behind peace. The host frames this as upside down, arguing Ukraine wants a ceasefire while Russia claims it must continue its operation and take historical lands, and warns that Russia will move beyond Ukraine toward Europe. The larger picture the segment draws is that Trump is manufacturing conflict with allies while smoothing
Absolutely.
paths for adversaries, and Europe is responding by drawing a line in public.
He's an
This is
enemy
what
of the
Trump does.
United States.
He escalates, he bullies, he lies, and then he calls the backlash proof that everyone else is the problem. But what the world
True.
is showing him now is simple. The intimidation is not working.
Nope.
The allies are not folding.
They're
the
not.
language has changed because the danger has changed. And if Trump keeps treating sovereignty like a suggestion,
I'm
he
sleepy
will not just
too.
damage America's reputation. He
I
will
was
drag
trying to
America
rush
into a
through,
crisis
but
it
Miss
did not
Miss
need
Tom
against
wouldn't let
people
me.
who used to be its closest partners.
I was trying to rush through and bypass some stuff, but she was like, boo boo. I didn't hear nothing that they said. Back that thing up. She buzzed the buzzer on me. Whew. And I know y'all know I done ate a whole bunch of stuff I wasn't supposed to. Nose all stuffy and stuff. Get the lights up, y'all. I don't feel like playing with y'all. I done got the trolls out. Oh no, you just wanted me to back that thing up. I done got the trolls out. I was trying to, what's that? Speed read. Speed listen. Hold on. I need to get this in here because I think that she been making
sex trafficking ring that she was a co-conspirator leading.
I think that Trump has redacted some of Elaine Maxwell stuff too. You understand? Oh Lord. And did I dig up some more? Hold on. Oh, I went and found the Department of Justice. Hold on. I'm all over the place. At Mrs. Khan. Okay, let me see. Where it show his name on here. About that Lake Michigan stuff. The girl was 13. There his name is, Donald Trump. And she's the little girl, well, she ain't little no more. She was, it looked like she was, the feds called her about the child trafficking. And she was trying to get back to, let me see. I am wanting to reconnect with the original detective that called me and I offered information about this. She's trying to get back to that detective that called her because she had already given Donald Trump's name along with Epstein's. All these people talking about ain't no evidence with Trump. And this was in 2020 when they contacted her about being pimped by her uncle and Epstein, and one of the paying clients that got her pregnant was Donald Trump. And that's the reason why he wanted to be present when the uncle took her child from her and threw it in Lake Michigan. And I am on the Department of Justice site. Child sex, Jeffrey Epstein. Why would they delete who it was drafted by? Why would they delete this? That's a whole employee. Why are they retracting stuff like that? Let me see if I got enough juice. Y'all see that? Online tip to FBI. And so she was trying to get back to the original person that she had talked to, that she had gave all this information to. So I don't know. This call was going on. This was happening in 2020. So she would have had to report it. I wonder, was it when Donald Trump was in office? She said, I previously provided a tip about 3 to 4 weeks before, maybe 4 weeks ago, under an alias. a detective from NYPD, FBI, SCX trafficking task. "13 years old and pregnant. Trafficked by my uncle." Here it is, y'all. Trump name is definitely in here. Definitely. So I get it. So what he thought he snitched on to get Epstein would not have been. See, I think he thought that the information that when he snitched on Epstein would, because he was being a co-conspirator, informant, or whatever type of informant he was. He took a proffer. I don't know. I think he thought his information would be redacted. And so when he was popping his gums, he thought he was covered. Out to find out that he wasn't covered. The information was not redacted. And so then is when they went in and was trying to redact it, because none of it was. And I do mean none of it. Where's your volume?
Sex offender, the late Jeffrey Epstein, more than 30. Yesterday, the Department of Justice released its largest batch yet of documents related to the convicted sex offender, the late Jeffrey Epstein. More than 30,000 documents were made public, adding to a series of releases that began late last week. Many of these files are heavily redacted with names, identities, and details blacked out, including the people the FBI appears to have considered possible co-conspirators in Epstein's trafficking network. What has drawn immediate attention is the increased number of references to President Donald Trump in this latest batch. Most mentions appear in old media reports and background material, but one internal email written by a federal prosecutor in New York in January of 2020 stands out. In that email, the prosecutor states that newly obtained flight records show Donald Trump traveled on Epstein's private jet more times than previously known. According to that email, Trump was listed as a passenger on at least 8 flights between 1993 and 1996. Ghislaine Maxwell, Epstein's longtime associate, was also present on at least 4 of those flights. President Trump was also listed as traveling at different times with Marla Maples, his wife at the time, as well as his children, Tiffany and Eric. On one flight in 1993, the only listed passengers were Donald Trump and Jeffrey Epstein. And on another, the flight included Epstein, Trump, and a third passenger, a 20-year-old girl whose name has been redacted. This directly contradicts President Trump's earlier public statements in which he said he never flew on Epstein's plane.
This is what the Democrats do to their Republican opponent, who is leading them by a lot in the polls. This is AI, and it is very dangerous for our country. Also, I was never on Epstein's plane or at his stupid island.
The documents also include unverified allegations. One filing accuses Trump of raping a woman decades ago, a claim that has not been proven and remains disputed. Another document has sparked shock and outrage as its complaint submitted to the FBI by a woman who alleges she was trafficked by Epstein and her uncle as a pregnant 13-year-old girl in 1984. She claims her newborn child was murdered and disposed of, alleging the baby's body was dumped into Lake Michigan from a yacht. In that complaint, Donald Trump is listed as being present at the scene. President Trump has repeatedly denied any wrongdoing related to Epstein, and recently he said these releases are harming the reputation of high-profile figures.
It's an interesting question because a lot of people are very angry that pictures are being released of other people that really had nothing to do with Epstein, but they're in a picture with him because he was at a party, and you ruin a reputation of somebody. So a lot of people are very angry that this continues. A lot of Republicans are angry because of the fact that it's just used to deflect against a tremendous success.
The Justice
You shouldn't
Department
have brought it up.
files include untrue and sensationalist claims
Shouldn't have
that
brought
were
it
submitted
up.
to the FBI shortly before the 2020 election. Now, it's also critical to underline the point: being named in Epstein-related documents doesn't by itself indicate guilt or wrongdoing.
He shouldn't have brought it up.
Some of these documents contain untrue and sensationalist claims made against President Trump that were submitted to the FBI right before the 2020 election. To be clear, the claims are unfounded and false, and if they had a shred of credibility, they certainly would have been weaponized against President Trump already.
He shouldn't have brought
As
it
more
up.
files come out, the picture grows larger, but still not necessarily clear. What these documents do show is how far Epstein's shadow still reaches, and how unresolved questions about the past continue to collide with power, politics, and public trust. And as the paper trail grows thicker, one thing is becoming increasingly clear: this story is far, far from over.
Absolutely.
Want the facts?
The latest developments?
News that gets straight to the point.
Well,
We should not have brought it up.
Just for you. This is First Post Live. A brand new show, your window into what really matters.
Don't miss it.
First,
He should not have brought it up. He did it to us. He played himself.
I am no longer supporting this administration. I redact any support I've ever given to him, Pam Bondi, Kash Patel. I am so disgusted with this
I don't know why. I don't know why any victim would be
from
supporting
floor to
them.
ceiling with photos of naked women. This room was.
Hello, what you making? The world's yours for the taking. Everything you touch, yeah, you can let it in.
Get the lights
a
up, y'all.
highly sexualized environment. The DOJ says the redactions are to protect privacy.
Look at 'em.
But the implications are clear. These are not modeled. Entirely to protect identities, but its very existence raises serious questions about what authorities know and what the public may never see. Another disturbing detail involves redacted passports and IDs, women from Eastern Europe and other regions, fueling long-standing allegations of international recruitment of vulnerable women, even after Epstein's 2008 plea deal. Yes, there are photos of passports and IDs, women from Eastern Europe and other regions, fueling long-standing allegations of international recruitment of vulnerable women, even after Epstein's 2008 plea deal. Yes, there are photos of Epstein with powerful figures, politicians, about what authorities know and what the public may never.
Get the lights up, y'all. Double tap the face of y'all screen. Double tap the face on your phone. Your device that you're listening in on. And if you're on your computer, there are 3 dots at the top. Right. Get them up quickly. Because I'm sleepy.
Another disturbing political debate. But investigators say not in who he met. It's not in who he met. It's in what he built. A system designed for exploitation. And despite the headlines, there is no smoking gun client list.
Is that the same type of gun that old boy used for Charlie Kirk?
Not in this
case. Who was this?
More files are.
Who is that? That's not Epstein. That's not Epstein. That's not his hair. Nope. Somebody got are those That ain't him. Is this a piercing? Just when I thought I was sleeping. Lord. Dorothy. Oh, me and my good eye just when I thought I was sleeping. What is this? I'm so sleepy. Y'all get the likes up. Double tap the face of your screen. He ain't no victim. Oh, well, I guess they had to redact that ass. That made me thirsty, y'all. I need to. Well, dang. Woke me right on up, didn't it? Okay. Lord have mercy. These freakazoids. These freakazoids. Let's back that thing up.
Files offer a dark reminder that even years after his death, the full truth remains
What is this?
heavily redacted.
That's two people, right?
Civilized environments where individuals said abuse was routinely carried out, but the implications are clear. These are not models. These are likely exploited individuals.
Oh my God.
Photographed, cataloged, and controlled. Even more alarming are the photos from FBI raid evidence. Binders stacked with CDs and hard drives.
Real Spill
with
TV.
suggestive titles. Thousands of files, the contents of which remain sealed.
I can't
Some
go to sleep now.
not reviewed. Material withheld entirely to protect identities, but its very existence raises serious
And some
questions
perverts,
about what authorities
somebody
know and what the public may never see. Another disturbing detail involves redacted passports and IDs. Women from Eastern Europe and other regions, fueling long-standing allegations of international recruitment of vulnerable women.
F freak right
even
there.
after Epstein's 2008 plea deal. Yes, there are photos of Epstein with powerful figures, politicians, celebrities. These have sparked political
What type of man
but
boobs is
investigators
that?
say the real horror is not in who he met, it's in what he built. A system designed for exploitation. And despite the headlines, there is no smoking gun climb.
Is this the same type of that at Charlie Kirk assassination? Is that the same type of gun?
List. No new names, no blackmail file. At least not in this release. More files are expected. But for now, the Epstein files offer a dark reminder that even years after his death, the full truth remains heavily redacted.
Wow.
Let's break down the most problematic and deeply skin used as a canvas.
Yeah, get the likes up, please. Oh, I got something in my eye. goodness. Y'all get the lights up? I'm trying to prop my pillows up. I'm finna go to sleep on y'all. Y'all playing. Come on, y'all. Come on.
Written across it are quotes from Vladimir Nabokov's Lolita, a novel long associated with dark and controversial themes.
Oh, my eyelids.
The images, released from Epstein's estate, have been described as deeply disturbing, not because of explicit nudity, but because of what they imply, the glorification and normalization of exploitative behavior. Another image that stands out comes from inside one of Epstein's properties, a so-called massage room, the walls covered from floor to ceiling with photos of naked women. This room was not decor, it was context, a visual snapshot of a highly sexualized environment where individuals said abuse was routinely carried out, all under the guise of massages. Then there are the images of women, scantily clad, sometimes nude, faces blacked out, adult items visible in the frame. The DOJ says the redactions are to protect privacy, but the implications are clear. These are not models. These are likely exploited individuals, photographed, cataloged, and controlled. Even more alarming are the photos from FBI raid evidence. Binders, but because of what they imply, the glorification and normalization of exploitative behavior. Another image that stands out comes from inside one of Epstein's properties, a so-called massage room, the walls covered from floor to ceiling with photos of naked women. This room was not decor. My doctor told me I needed to eat healthier to lower my A1C and naturally boost my GLP-1. I didn't know where to start until I found Hungry Root. Hungry Root makes healthy eating shockingly simple. They send groceries, snacks, healthy recipes, and ready-to-eat meals straight to your door, all tailored to your needs. You take a quick assessment and they build your plan around your health goals, dietary restrictions, and favorite flavors. Your grocery cart is pre-filled every week, but you can make swaps in seconds based on what you're craving or how you're feeling. Navigating this new phase of life has never been easier. It's like having a personal nutrition coach right at my fingertips. They've truly taken the stress and guesswork out of eating better, and my doctor is really happy with my levels now. Start feeling more in control of your health and try Hungry Root today. Cataloged and controlled. Even more alarming are the photos from FBI raid evidence. Binders stacked with CDs and hard drives, labeled with suggestive titles, thousands of files, the contents of which remain sealed, some marked not reviewed. Material withheld entirely to protect identities, but its very existence raises serious questions about what authorities know and what the public may never see. Another disturbing detail involves redacted passports and IDs, women from Eastern Europe and other regions, fueling long-standing allegations of international recruitment of vulnerable women, even after Epstein's 2008 plea deal. Yes, there are photos of Epstein with powerful figures, politicians, celebrities. These have sparked political debate. But investigators say the real horror is not in who he met, it's in what he built. A system designed for exploitation. And despite the headlines, there is no smoking gun client list, no new names, no blackmail file.
Oh, this must
At
be,
least,
oh,
not
boo-boo.
in this
It is some
race.
new names. You crazy.
More files are expected.
Oh, yeah.
But for now, the Epstein files offer a dark reminder that even...
Okay, where my likes at? Redacted passports, yes. Yeah, I see. I really like this one. Lutein esteem. That's good for your eyes. Oh, dang it. I need to take this mascara off. God, dog, I forgot. Okay, let's go. It's another one. My likes ain't up. My likes ain't up. I'm an hour in. Wow, so they still have the passports. Or, yep. They still got them. Now, let me hear this.
Oh, great. A request for a new video. Now to rely on 1,000 people to get it done. Or you can just use Riverside and do it yourself. First up, you can record people without getting...
Make sure we continue to pay attention to what Ghislaine Maxwell is doing at the same time the Trump regime is engaged in a cover-up of her child sex trafficking ring that she was a co-conspirator leading with Jeffrey Epstein. We know the Trump regime is covering up the names of at least 10 other potential co-conspirators that we saw in the files that were released so far. We haven't really seen extensive grand jury material, FBI witness interviews, FBI survivor interviews, and one of the reasons may have to do with what could be being coordinated between the Trump regime and Ghislaine Maxwell as a pretext for some of the objections being asserted by the Trump regime not to produce some of these critical records. I believe there's probably millions of records that have not been produced thus far. I know the number out there is a few 100,000. No, in my review, I believe there's at least 5 million records, not documents, records that are out there. So Ghislaine Maxwell in this past week, and the timing's not coincidental, she filed what's called a habeas corpus petition to try to set aside her conviction based on what she's referring to as newly discovered evidence. She's using it for a number of things. Number one, I think she wants to help the Trump regime assert objections regarding material that...
So, okay,
could be related to her habeas corpus petition, and maybe that's one of the reasons that the DOJ is ultimately going to say that they're not producing all of these records. Stay tuned on that. Also, we know that the Democrats in the House Oversight Committee want to depose Ghislaine Maxwell, and rightfully so. She should be deposed, and she should be questioned, and she should have to answer questions. She holds a lot of answers, and she spoke with Donald Trump's former personal criminal defense lawyer, who's now the #2 at the Department of Justice, Todd Blanche, who himself is complicit in this cover-up, the PPP, the Pedo Protection Program. And Todd Blanche was the first guy out there who said, we're just going to turn over rolling records, just some records, not all of the files. I mean, this guy's as complicit, I believe, in my opinion, in this cover-up of not releasing the files. But again, I have a First Amendment right to give you my opinion. That's what this is, First Amendment free speech. I'm giving you my opinions. Now,
you needed
to
what,
give us a
Dorothy?
better analysis of Ghislaine Maxwell's habeas corpus petition, I want to bring in Katie Fang. You know Katie Fang. You love Katie Fang. She's now, of course, a host on the Midas Touch Network. So, Katie Fang, let me bring you in here and explain to us the import of Ghislaine Maxwell's habeas petition.
We get a 50-plus page, you're looking at it right now, folks, 50-page or so pro se petition that was filed by Ghislaine Maxwell, known co-conspirator, equally as culpable, hands just as dirty, child sex predator, child sex trafficker, child sex abuser. She filed it in federal court, the Southern District of New York, and it's a writ of habeas corpus. We've talked about habeas corpus a lot here at this channel, and folks, what Ghislaine Maxwell is seeking, she puts it out very clearly on page 4, although it's really not 4. The paging, the enumeration of the pages, or the pagination, excuse me, is like all messed up on this. But according to this online PDF, which is this multi-page petition on page 4 of 8, even though it's 50 pages, This is what she says. Ghislaine Maxwell proceeding pro se, and just as a gentle reminder, pro se means she is not filing this with the assistance of a lawyer. She is representing herself. Footnote, she has had incredibly competent, capable criminal defense lawyer, David Marcus, based here out of Miami, someone I know very well. She's had him through years of representation, so I find it to be very intriguing that there has been no co-signing of this particular motion in any way.
Yes,
or,
Illis, they are dirty.
Dirty. So she's proceeding on her own. She's asking the federal court, pursuant to a federal statute, to, quote, vacate, set aside, or correct her conviction and sentence, end quote. So let's stop for a second here, right? So there's various relief that's being sought by Ghislaine Maxwell. She's actually saying, dear judge, based upon the following reasons, you need to either completely get rid of my sentence and conviction. You need to either set aside my sentence or conviction, or you need to fix it, that there's something wrong with it. So she could either get a new trial, she could either get a reduction in sentence. I mean, that's what she's seeking. I'm not telling you that's what she's getting. I'm just telling you what she's looking for, right? She claims that since the conclusion of her trial, substantial new evidence has emerged from related civil actions, government disclosures, investigative reports, and documents demonstrating constitutional violations that undermine the fairness of her proceedings. She's talking about the original prosecution and jury trial in New York that led to her eventual sentencing back in 2021. She claims that this newly available evidence derived from litigation against the FBI, various financial institutions, and the estate of Jeffrey Epstein, as well as from sworn depositions, released records, and other verified sources, shows that exculpatory information was withheld, false testimony presented, and material facts misrepresented to the jury and the court. The cumulative effect of these constitutional violations constitutes a complete miscarriage of justice, rendering Maxwell's conviction invalid, unsafe, and infirm. She raises what she says are 9 principal grounds for relief. She alleges that she has supported these grounds with newly discovered or previously suppressed evidence. She claims that no reasonable juror would have convicted her, and so she's seeking a vacating of her conviction, an evidentiary hearing, and other relief that justice would require.
When I saw the domain was available, I was like, I'm taking it, I'm trademarking it, I'm going with it. Hi, I'm Aaron. I'm the owner of Cuppa Pug. I wanted the word cuppa as a
fancy legalese.
Thank you, Mrs. Tom.
For her basically saying, I want to get the hell out of prison, even though we know she's been the beneficiary of the Trump DOJ, putting her in a minimum security camp in Texas right now, where she gets to play with service dogs, and she gets to go hang out and have her friends come and her families come, and she talks to her lawyers, and she gets to go get exercise on her own, and she uses the warden as her bitch. Not my words, by the way, but from people that are there at that minimum security camp. She now is saying, I want the hell out. Alrighty. So just as a reminder, she's currently 63 years old and she's serving a 20-year sentence, 20 years in federal prison, convicted in 2021. And another reminder, she went to a jury trial and she was tried and convicted by a jury of her peers and sentenced by a federal judge. And just another reminder, she has attacked before the trial, during the trial, and after the trial, when she did have representation by incredibly competent counsel. She has attacked a lot of these same grounds. So this claim that there's newly discovered evidence is bunk. She interestingly cites in her habeas corpus petition to things like Netflix, because we know that there's been some, new kind of videos and documentaries and things that were generated as a result of the Epstein files kind of percolating back to the top of the media discourse recently. And, look, a lot of the claims that she raises, she's already tried. And so there's this way, if I can explain, please, there's a way of being able to attack what has happened to you, and it's kind of like direct appeals, and she's done it. And remember, she's gone all the way to the Supreme Court in the United States, who declined to take her appeal. And so now she's dead in the water, right? Like her ship is dead. It is anchored firmly to terra firma right now for that 20-year sentence. And even though she may be living it out in some minimum security kind of country club prison in Texas, it has nowhere to go. And so now she's trying desperately to do this. And again, I don't believe in coincidences, right? I mean, this is a very intentional thing, because what happens tomorrow? The release of the files, which of course she doesn't want to have come out, because it's just going to show even more of her culpability and guilt when it comes to this international sex trafficking rings of children. I will note that it could create a little bit of a wrinkle, again, as I mentioned a few minutes ago, in terms of the release of the files, because there could be a claim that in light of this habeas corpus petition, that it could impact her petition if the files are released. Look, I know that Bondi's going to look for every single straw to grasp to prevent the release of this information. Why? Because you know it harms Donald Trump. And that's why. Because if it didn't harm him, what shits would they give releasing it, right? But she knows it harms Trump. She knows it harms Trump's buddies and others, and that's part of the reason why she's also getting a directive, I am positive, to make sure that this thing is slow walked, slow rolled, or not sent out. Could I be wrong? Yes, I could be wrong. Just my opinion. Alrighty, so let's talk about this, because the grounds that are set forth in this petition run the gamut from the following. And let's go through it together.
Pet stores are trying to ban this $39 robot puppy because kids actually prefer it over real pets.
So it runs the gamut from the following, that a juror, specifically number 50, a guy by the name of Scotty David, gave false answers during jury selection because he concealed a history of sexual abuse that was directly relevant to the issues at her trial. She alleges that the civil lawyers representing victims and survivors of Epstein and Maxwell and others coordinated, quote unquote, with federal prosecutors. She cites to a Netflix documentary wherein the lawyers representing the victims said they were working in common interests, which, by the way, happens. And so there's nothing wrong with that. But she then says that these lawyers met with the government, and she alleges it's to, quote, foment the investigation. So she's suggesting that the only reason why the government investigated or prosecuted her was because the civil lawyers representing the Epstein victims and survivors wanted it to happen. Another argument she raises is that the United States breached the 2007 non-prosecution agreement reached between the government and Jeffrey Epstein. She says she was supposed to be the beneficiary of the immunity to any potential co-conspirators clause. Does that sound familiar? Yeah. Why? Because it's been litigated over and over and over and over again, and she's lost every single time she's tried to raise this as a bar to the prosecution.
Illis, should not. Y'all double tap the face of your phone. If you're listening on your phone device, double tap the face of it. If you're on your computer, hit the three dots at the top right corner in. Yeah, I'm gonna wait for them to get the likes up. But Illis, you right. And then to hear him talking to those kids yesterday for Christmas, he didn't even know what to say. He's pitiful. He is pitiful. And I do mean pitiful. Absolutely pitiful. I'm gonna take my Alka-Seltzer Plus nighttime, baby, because they playing with me with my likes. 200, I'm an hour and 17 minutes in, 200 people listening in, only 95 likes. Get the likes up. Double tap the face of your phone, please. I'm getting stuffy. I'm gonna take it. I'm gonna be out. And I got my night mask. Y'all listen, if y'all eyes are tired, I am so glad I invested in these. I got different brands, different ones, but the steam eye mask, I'm going to add them to the product bag so that y'all can take a look at some of them, along with the magnesium body butter, magnesium butter for aches and pains. We're deficient in magnesium and our eyes are tired. These are magnificent. They steam. Oh my God, I love them. Where my likes at? Let's go, y'all, because I'm sleepy.
She's lost. So you can tell that she's grasping for straws and she's desperate because she brings it up again. But here's the thing. She makes an admission here in her habeas corpus petition that she, quote, plainly falls within the class of co-conspirator, meaning she's supposed to get that immunity from that non-prosecution agreement between Epstein and the Southern District of Florida. I want to stop for a second. We've talked about this before. So Ghislaine Maxwell is admitting that she is a co-conspirator of Jeffrey Epstein.
Right.
Got it.
She's admitting.
Thank you for that admission. I mean, to be the beneficiary of that co-conspirator clause, you have to be a co-conspirator.
So she has to be guilty of.
I mean, listen. Her generous interpretation of that clause is that she's a potential co-conspirator, and yet we all know, again, this has been litigated, and even the Trump DOJ took the position that this non-prosecution agreement did not inure to her benefit, as in Ghislaine Maxwell, because it was not supposed to be for her benefit. Even Trump's DOJ said that. Maxwell goes on and alleges that the 25-year delay between alleged conduct committed by her and the indictment violated her due process because she was impaired in her abilities to present a defense. And that is revealed by trial testimony and new evidence. Again, she's saying the government could have indicted her several times in timely manners sooner.
They've been getting away with it for so long. They thought that they had it sold up.
Expensive didentist visits.
Was you hear when I played to you what the plan was for the next 30 years, Illis? That was going to control it for the next 30 years.
Who was like kind of the lead driver in the Southern District of Florida, that she ordered the list of victims and their statements to be destroyed. She's alleging spoliation of evidence, not well-founded at all. She then blames Jeffrey Epstein, saying that his death denied her critical document access to defend herself, including full flight manifests. She also says that Epstein had access to the negotiation history of the non-prosecution agreement,
and they would have
because he's dead, she was able to access
if they would have controlled it, been able to follow that plan of controlling it with Vance, Charlie Kirk, then Eric, or Donald Jr., whichever one, then that means these secrets, this child trafficking, money laundering, treason, robbing the U.S., stealing out, that would have continued for 30 years. I've been trying to tell you this New World Order, their plan is to fund Israel, build in Israel, build these brothels. That's what I got. Dang, it's oh man, the brothels, and bankrupt the U.S. and leave the U.S. a third world country. That's their plan. That was their plan until they took out Charlie Kirk for going against Israel.
Nothing like blaming the dead guy. Which, by the way, I still think is mysterious how that guy died. She then says that new evidence reveals that she was only indicted because Jeffrey Epstein was dead, and it was purely political motivation because they wanted to make sure that somebody was held to account for what happened, that it was only for expediency and purely political motives. She then blames the court for erroneous guideline calculations for her ultimate sentencing, and then she then throws in another argument that her pretrial confinement in the corrections facility that she was being held in New York was, quote, barbaric and contrary to treaties to which the United States is a signatory when it comes to not having cruel and unusual punishment, blah, blah, blah. It is her signature that appears at the end of the petition, just letting y'all know. She signs it, and she signs it clearly saying it was done by her, that she was doing it pro se. I mean, look, people, none of the the exhibits to which she cites are included yet on the docket. And she just continues to make this argument that this is newly discovered evidence that would actually help her now try to vacate her conviction and her sentence. I mean, it's bunk. It ain't going to be well taken, and there's no obligation for the court to actually do anything, as in the court has no obligation to do an evidentiary hearing on it, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, this is yet another example of the following, though, which I think, we talk about jailhouse lawyers, and in this instance, it's because she got moved to this minimum security camp in Texas that she has time to be able to do this shit now. It's remarkable. We never saw it before. I mean, yeah, she had a lawyer, but we never saw her doing this before when she was being held in the maximum security location in Florida, right? But now that she's at this minimum security camp in Texas, suddenly she has all the time in the world to file a 50-page habeas corpus petition, etc. I mean, my only concern, again, I want to underscore this, is that the DOJ latches on to this to be able to say we can't release the Epstein files. And I will say this, her lawyer did argue in opposition to the release of the grand jury records in New York that was ultimately granted by a judge, that very thoughtful judge, Paul Engemeyer, who entered that multi-page order that you and I walked through here at the Katie Faye News Channel. Like, you'll recall that the judge is like, methodically walking through the reasons why he's agreed that he's going to release these records. And remember, it's subject to a certification by the U.S. Attorney in the Southern District of New York, Jay Clayton, that he is guaranteeing that he's reviewed these records before they're disclosed to make sure that the victims and the survivors are protected in terms of their identities and personal information. But Maxwell's lawyer argues against the release of those grand jury materials, previously stating that the release would create, quote, undue prejudice so severe it would foreclose the possibility of a fair retrial should Miss Maxwell's habeas petition succeed. Okay, so what does that mean? That means the following, that Maxwell's habeas petition is the one that she just filed pro se that we just walked through together. And her lawyers are saying that the information that's going to come even from the grand jury records, they're claiming is so severely prejudicial that it's going to harm her ability to be able to get a new trial or vacate her conviction and sentence, right? That just proves my point. That if the grand jury records being disclosed, which, by the way, are not a lot. Remember, all the federal judges said this is just a total kind of, smoke and mirrors move by the federal court to be able to say that there's, something big there when there's not. It's just like, sleight of hand by the DOJ, because really the DOJ holds all of the damning and substantial information, right? But if Maxwell's shitting her pants so badly about the grand jury records coming out from her Southern District of New York prosecution, can you imagine the treasure trove of information against Maxwell, Epstein, and others that's being held in the complete and total Epstein files that the DOJ has? Proven my points. So, do not expect a huge tranche of information to be released tomorrow. Expect a battle to be able to get more, because you know what? Why in the world would Trump make it easy for us to be able to have information that is potentially incriminating and damning in terms of his involvement with convicted child sex trafficker, child sex predator, child sex abuser Ghislaine Maxwell, and her dead co-conspirator Jeffrey Epstein?
Thanks for watching. Be sure to add the Midas Touch podcast.
Would actually come. We heard assurances from legal teams. There's a specific kind of silence that falls over Washington when something irreversible happens. A stillness that stands in sharp contrast to the noise and chaos that usually defines this town.
Yeah, I'll get the lights
You have likely seen the footage by now. It has been played on a loop on every major network, analyzed by pundits, and shared across social media platforms millions of times in just the last few hours. The Senate leader walking to the desk, the deliberate pause, the stroke of the pen on the document labeled the removal order. On the surface, it looks like a simple administrative act, the kind of bureaucratic theater we see every day on Capitol Hill. But I want to stop you right there, because if you look at that signature and see only a formality, you are missing the profound shift that just occurred beneath the surface of our democracy. What you witnessed was not just a signature. It was the final mechanical click of a constitutional lock snapping into place. For months, the conversation in this city has been dominated by speculation, by legal theories, by the loud back and forth of cable news debates about whether this day would actually come. We heard assurances from legal teams, confident predictions from political strategists, and endless spin from surrogates on both sides. But the moment that ink dried on the parchment, all of that noise evaporated. We moved instantly from the realm of political possibility into the cold, hard territory of administrative execution. I want to walk you through what this actually means, not just for the former president, but for the machinery of the government that you interact with and rely on. When we talk about power in Washington, we often talk about it in abstract terms: influence, leverage, optics. But power is also physical. It is codified in documents, in orders, and in signatures that compel agencies to act. The document the Senate leader just signed is effectively a self-executing instruction to the federal bureaucracy. It is the legislative branch telling the executive branch
that a specific individual no longer holds the privileges and protections of the office. This is rare. In fact, we are in uncharted waters here. Usually, transitions of power are ceremonial, guided by tradition and mutual agreement. This is a forced extraction of authority, authorized by the highest legislative body in the land, and it triggers a cascade of automatic protocols that most people do not even know exist. You might be wondering why this specific signature matters so much more than the vote itself. The vote was the decision. The signature is the command. Until that document was signed and sealed, there was still a theoretical gasp of air, a tiny window where legal maneuvers or procedural delays could have been attempted. That window is now closed. For Donald Trump, the shift in reality is immediate and jarring. We are hearing reports from sources close to the former president that the atmosphere at his residence is somber, almost silent. You have to understand the psychology at play here. For a man who has built his entire career and political persona on the idea of invincibility, on the premise that there is always another deal to be made or another court to appeal to, this is a confrontational moment. His legal team, the people he pays to protect him, had reportedly assured him that the process would stall, that the political will in the Senate would fracture, or that the paperwork would simply get lost in the gridlock of partisanship. That advice has turned out to be catastrophically wrong. The system, which often moves at a glacial pace, suddenly moved with striking efficiency. This creates a fascinating and volatile dynamic. You have a figure who is used to bending reality to his will, now facing a bureaucratic wall that does not care about rallies, poll numbers, or social media posts. The removal order is blind to popularity. It cares only about the statute. I think it is important for us to pause and consider how this affects you. It is easy to look at this as a clash of titans, a drama played out by wealthy and powerful men in marble buildings that have nothing to do with your daily life. But the stability of our government relies entirely on the orderly transfer and maintenance of power. When that process is disrupted or when it requires this level of intervention to resolve, it sends a tremor through the entire system. The agencies that are now receiving this signed order are the same ones that handle national security, finance, and justice. They are now tasked with the unprecedented job of decoupling a former leader from the apparatus of the state. This is not just about one man leaving a stage. It is about stress testing the institutions that are supposed to serve you. If the gears grind too hard, if the friction is too great, it slows down everything else. We are watching the system correct itself in real time, and that is a messy, high-stakes process. Let's dig a little deeper into the mechanics of what happened in that room. The Senate leader did not just sign a piece of paper, he authenticated a verdict. In the architecture of our government, the Senate acts as a court of impeachment and removal in these specific scenarios. When they sit in judgment, they are not just legislators, they are jurors. The signature is the foreman handing over the verdict form. What is striking to me, speaking to people who were in the room, was the lack of fanfare. There were no speeches. There was no banging of the gavel to silence a rowdy crowd. It was done with a quiet, almost clinical precision. This was likely by design. The leadership understands that the country is on edge. They know that you are watching, perhaps with anxiety, perhaps with relief, but certainly with intense attention. They wanted to project stability. They wanted the visual language of this moment to be one of routine governance, even though the action itself is anything but routine.
I don't get this. I don't get this shit yet. I need to do more research on that. Hold on.
If you watched the news today, you saw the headline and you likely saw the clip. Mitch McConnell standing at the podium in the well of the Senate, delivering what many are already calling the most consequential speech of his long career. The chyron on your screen probably said something about a breakup or a feud, framing this as just another chapter in the long, turbulent saga between the Senate minority.
I need to.
If you watched the news today, you saw the headline and you likely saw the clip. Mitch McConnell standing at the podium in the well of the Senate, delivering what many are already calling the most consequential speech of his long career. The chyron on your screen probably said something about a breakup or a feud, framing this as just another chapter in the long, turbulent saga between the Senate minority leader and the former president. But if you stop there, if you view this solely as a clash of personalities or a burst of sudden anger, you are missing the actual story. What happened on that floor was not an emotional outburst. It was not a personal grievance aired in public. It was a calculated institutional maneuver designed to shift the
Phyllis, don't come over here with that type
of the
stuff.
Republican Party.
Please
When you
don't.
look at how power actually moves in Washington, you learn quickly that leaders like McConnell do not burn bridges unless they have already built a new road to walk on. Today was that road being unveiled. You saw a speech. What I saw was a permission structure being erected brick by brick for 49 other senators who have been
King
waiting
Trump? What
for a signal
what does
to
that
move.
mean? What does
I want
King
to
Trump
walk you
mean?
through exactly what happened, not just what was said into the microphone, but what was being communicated to the donors, the whips, and the wavering members of the conference who were watching
He
from
is
their
a
desks.
pedo. He
We
pedo
often
Trump.
talk about political
He ain't
earthquakes,
no
and
king.
usually it is hyperbole. Today, it is not. To understand why this moment is different, you have to look past the drama and look at the mechanics. McConnell is a creature of the Senate. He cares about the institution and his majority more than he cares about any single politician. And for years, he has navigated a delicate balance with Donald Trump. He has absorbed attacks. He has stayed silent when others spoke out. And he has always prioritized the long game. That is why today's speech is so jarring. It signals that the calculation has changed. The cost of alignment now outweighs the benefit. And McConnell did not just drift away. He severed the tie with a legalistic precision that makes it very hard to reattach. Think about what it felt like watching that moment. The silence in the chamber was described as deafening. And for once, that cliche holds weight. Usually the Senate floor is a place of low hums, side conversations, and rustling papers. But when leadership steps up to deliver a verdict like this, the room stops because everyone knows the implications. You might be wondering why this matters to you if you are not a political junkie. It matters because this is not just inside baseball. This is about the choices available to you as a voter in the next cycle. It is about whether one of the two major parties in this country remains tethered to one man or whether it splinters into something unrecognizable. When the most powerful Republican in Washington decides to effectively end the career of the party de facto leader, it changes the menu of options for the entire electorate. Let us look at the speech itself. Sources I have spoken to confirm that this was not written in a fever specifically for this afternoon. This was drafted, revised, and likely vetted by legal scholars and parliamentary experts over a significant period. It was a loaded gun sitting in a desk drawer, waiting for the right moment to be pulled out. McConnell did not just criticize the former president rhetoric. He laid out a specific coherent argument regarding his eligibility and his standing within the party future by focusing on a legal argument rather than a moral one. McConnell gave his caucus cover. He gave them a way to say, I still support the policies, but I cannot argue with this logic. That is a critical distinction. In politics, and especially in the Senate, you need to give your allies a lifeboat before you sink the ship. McConnell just deployed the lifeboats. The reaction from Mar-a-Lago, as you might expect, has been explosive. We are hearing reports of genuine fury, a sense of betrayal that goes beyond the usual name-calling. Insiders describe the former president as feeling backstabbed by a man he views as owing him for past electoral successes. But this reaction is exactly what McConnell anticipated. In fact, it is part of the plan. By drawing the fire onto himself, McConnell becomes the lightning rod, allowing vulnerable senators in purple states to stay quiet while the leadership takes the heat. It is a classic move in the leadership playbook. Absorb the blow so the rank and file can survive. But the risk here is enormous. We are not just talking about a squabble. We are talking about a potential civil war within the GOP base. You have to ask yourself, why now? Why, after everything, is this the moment the dam breaks? To answer that, we have to look at the pressure that has been building behind the scenes. There is a disconnect between what you see on cable news, the rallies, the cheering crowds, and what is happening in the quiet fundraisers and strategy sessions in DC. There has been a growing anxiety among the donor class and the institutionalists that the current path leads to a permanent minority status. McConnell's job, as he sees it, is to win elections. If he has decided that the former president is now an anchor rather than a sail, he will cut the rope. That is what you saw today. It was a cold, unsentimental cutting of the rope. But doing it is one thing. Surviving the backlash is another. We need to talk about the signal mentioned in the reports. In the Senate, rarely is anything done in isolation. When the minority leader moves, he usually knows he has the votes or the support to sustain the move. This suggests that conversations have been happening in the cloakrooms and the private dining rooms for weeks. Senators who would never criticize Trump on camera may have been urging McConnell to do this in private. It creates a dynamic where the public face of the party is at war with its private reality. You are watching a party try to metabolize its own history and decide if it can digest it or if it has to reject it entirely. As we dig deeper into this, keep in mind that the language McConnell used was designed to be quoted. He spoke of the party moving on. That is a directive, not a suggestion. He is trying to create a self-fulfilling prophecy. If he says it is over and he says it with enough authority and enough people believe him, then it becomes true. Power in Washington is often an illusion of momentum. If you can convince enough people that the train is leaving the station, they will run to catch it. McConnell is blowing the whistle. The question is who is getting on board and who is being left on the platform. This leads us to the mechanics of what happens next. You might be thinking that we have seen this movie before. Trump gets attacked. He counterpunches and the attacker fades away. But the institutional weight of the Senate minority leader is different. McConnell controls the purse strings for Senate races. He controls committee assignments. He controls the legislative calendar when they are in power. When he speaks, he is speaking with the leverage of the entire institution behind him. This is not a tweet. It is a structural blockade. I want you to think about the timing. We are in a window where the political landscape is shifting rapidly. By making this move now, McConnell is trying to clear the field before the next primary cycle truly hardens. He is trying to define the post-Trump era before anyone else can define it for him. It is a high-stakes gamble. If he fails, he loses his grip on the conference and perhaps his legacy. If he succeeds, he reshapes American conservatism for a generation. As we continue to analyze the fallout, remember that for the average voter, this might feel like noise. But the consequences of this speech will filter down to your local ballot. It will determine who runs for Senate in your state, what kind of ads you see, and what issues are prioritized in Washington. This is the origin point of the next few years of political conflict. We are going to look at the specific arguments McConnell made and why he chose those specific words. Because in the Senate, no word is accidental. Every syllable is weighed. And today, the scale tipped. When that scale tips in the Senate, it rarely tips back. This brings us to the core of what actually transpired on the floor. Beyond the headlines and the shockwaves rippling through social media, what McConnell delivered was less of a political stump speech and more of a constitutional indictment. He was not playing to the galleries. He was playing to the history books and, crucially, to the strict textualists within his own party. The central argument he laid out hinges on a specific, often overlooked interpretation of eligibility and the responsibilities of the office. By framing his opposition not as a matter of personal preference, but as a matter of constitutional duty, he stripped the emotion out of the decision for his colleagues. He essentially told them, you do not have to hate him to vote against him. You just have to follow the law. That provides a massive psychological shield for senators who are terrified of a primary challenge. They can go back to their districts and say they were hands tied by the Constitution, a document their base reveres. You need to understand the mechanism here. In the Senate, procedure is policy. The way a question is framed determines the answer.
Let me bypass this. I want to hear the speech. I want to hear the speech. Let's hear the speech. Let's end on the speech. Yeah, I want to hear the speech.
Sometimes trying things on the internet, you really never know what you're gonna get. But if you want to guarantee delicious recipes that are delivered right to your door.
Tonight on ABC News Live Prime, a double blast of powerful holiday storms threatening the West and the Northeast. 41 million out west bracing for potentially catastrophic rains and life-threatening flooding. Evacuation orders already in effect in some areas tonight.
I'm Melissa Don in Los Angeles, and we are tracking the dangerous flooding across LA.
Around the world, expressing his great sadness that Russia has rejected a request for a Christmas ceasefire agreement.
That ain't it.
This is NBC Nightly News with Tom Yamas.
And good evening. I'm Sam Brock, in for Tom tonight. The situation is both dangerous and still unfolding for 30.
Very interesting.
Mr. President, what do you say to people who view that luxury jet as a personal gift to you? Why not leave it behind?
You're ABC fake news, right?
Why not?
It's only ABC. Well, a few of you would. Let me tell you, you should be embarrassed asking that question. They're giving us a free jet. I could say, no, don't give us. I want to pay you $1 billion or 400 million or whatever it is.
Where is? Hold on.
Tonight, something extraordinary is happening in Washington, and it is happening much faster than anyone expected. Impeachment is back, not as a fringe slogan, not as a protest chant, not as a long-shot fantasy whispered on cable news panels. Impeachment is back as a real, measurable force inside Congress. Because this week, 140 members of the United States House of Representatives voted to move forward with impeaching a sitting president. 140. That is not symbolic. That is not noise. That is not a handful of firebrands shouting into the void. That is nearly 1/3 of the entire House saying, we believe the president has crossed a line so severe that impeachment must be on the table now. And suddenly, the Senate is staring at something it desperately hoped it would never have to face again. Another impeachment trial, just as the 2026 election season begins to ignite. Now, let's slow this down, because the way we got here matters just as much as where this is heading. This impeachment push is being driven by Democratic Congressman Al Green of Texas, a man who has been warning about Donald Trump for years, often when very few wanted to listen. On December 11th, Green forced the House to take a vote on articles of impeachment. Leadership tried to shut it down. They voted to table it. Republicans joined them. And technically, yes, the resolution was blocked. But here's the part you cannot ignore. 140 lawmakers voted anyway. They voted knowing leadership opposed it. They voted knowing the political risks. They voted knowing the Senate would likely acquit. They voted because something has changed. And what changed is not just Trump's behavior, it's the fear inside Congress itself. Al Green stood on the House floor and accused the president of normalizing political violence, not encouraging policy disagreements, not using harsh rhetoric, but creating a climate where threats against lawmakers are becoming routine, even expected. Green said, "We cannot allow the notion that you can hang members of Congress because you disagree with their position." That is not metaphor. That is not exaggeration. Members of Congress are receiving death threats. Capitol Police have documented a surge in credible violent threats. Lawmakers, Democrats, and Republicans have required security details. And the common thread running through those threats is presidential rhetoric. This is what Green is arguing is impeachable. Not a single
get the
speech,
lights up, please.
not a single post. But a sustained pattern where the president labels opponents as traitors, enemies, criminals, and leaves the punishment implied, that is not accidental. That is stochastic political violence. And Congress knows it. This wasn't Green's first attempt. He has filed multiple impeachment resolutions this year, one alleging abuse of power, another accusing Trump of usurping Congress's war-making authority. At first, support was thin. Democrats were cautious. Leadership was terrified of repeating the first impeachment, worried it would energize Trump's base and backfire politically. But then Trump's rhetoric escalated. Talk of jailing political opponents, talk of retribution, talk of enemies within. And suddenly, impeachment stopped sounding theoretical and started sounding necessary. That is why this vote matters. Because the 140 lawmakers who backed Green are not just progressives. Yes, members of the squad are there. But so are moderates from swing districts, lawmakers who usually avoid confrontation at all costs. They voted because they believe doing nothing is now more dangerous than acting. Now imagine the Senate's position.
Finally.
If the House passes articles of impeachment, and that is increasingly possible, the Constitution is clear, the Senate must respond. They can hold a full trial, weeks of testimony, evidence, headlines, and hearings that freeze Trump's agenda and dominate the national conversation. Or they can bury it, rush to acquit, dismiss evidence, and look like they are protecting a president accused of enabling political violence. Either option is political dynamite. Republican senators are trapped. Vote to convict, and Trump's base will come for you. Vote to acquit, and independents may see you as complicit. 7 Republicans voted to convict Trump after January 6th. 7. And nearly all of them paid a heavy political price. So don't expect courage to come easily. But here's what Democrats are betting on. They are betting that impeachment, even without conviction, changes the narrative. Because this impeachment is not happening in isolation. It is landing amid allegations of corruption, cover-ups, abuse of power, and political intimidation. It connects the dots. It tells voters this is not about one scandal, it's about a pattern. A president who believes he is above the law. An administration that treats accountability as optional. A political movement that uses fear as a tool. Impeachment forces that story into the open. It forces Republicans to defend it on the record. And that matters heading into 2026. Will impeachment energize Trump's base? Absolutely. But Democrats believe something else is happening too. Independent voters are watching. They are watching lawmakers receive death threats. They are watching rhetoric escalate. They are watching Congress hesitate. And they are asking a dangerous question. If Congress won't act now, when will it? That is the real stakes of this moment. This is not just about Donald Trump. It is about whether impeachment still functions as a constitutional check or whether it has become meaningless in a hyper-partisan era. Al Green is forcing Congress to answer that question. And the fact that 140 members stood with him tells us the answer is no longer settled. More articles are coming, more votes are coming, and the Senate knows it. The pressure is building. The timeline is shrinking. And the 2026 campaign is about to collide head-on with constitutional accountability. This is no longer theoretical. This is real. This is happening. And the next few weeks may decide whether Congress still has the power and the courage to check a president who refuses to check himself. Buckle up. Because American democracy is about to test itself in public This is no longer theoretical. This is real. This is happening. And the next few weeks may decide whether Congress still has the power and the courage to check a president who refuses to check himself. Buckle up. Because American democracy is about to test itself in public, in real time, and the outcome will echo far beyond this election cycle.
Name.com has everything you need to get online quickly for a low.
Okay, so since y'all cannot get my likes up, it's late in the midnight hour. This is going to be it for me.
By a different fear, the fear of being last on a sinking ship. Tonight, everyone is staring at one number like it's a scoreboard, 67. But here's the thing, this isn't a math story. This is a fear story. Because in Washington, numbers don't move until something breaks. A donor's patience, a senator's nerve, a party's survival instinct. For weeks, they told you the wall would hold. They told you no one would dare be the first to jump. And then suddenly the whispers stopped sounding like whispers and started sounding like a plan. Because once the Senate smells certainty, it moves fast. If you're watching the coverage tonight, it's easy to get hypnotized by the language of inevitability. The Senate has the votes. The dam has broken.
Y'all please hit the like button.
It feels like the story is already written. Like all that's left is the roll
Double
call
tap
and
the face of the
But power
screen.
doesn't work like that. Not really. Because 67 is not a spontaneous number. It's a manufactured number. It's the final visible output of an invisible process. Hours of persuasion, private bargaining, and something the Senate specializes in better than any institution in American life: coordinated self-preservation. Here's the key. The defense doesn't need to convince anyone of innocence. It never did. The entire strategy is a single engineering principle. Hold at 34. Keep the line. Keep the firewall. It's not about winning the public argument. It's about preventing the internal collapse. And for a long time, it worked, because fear is a phenomenal adhesive. Fear of the base, fear of donors, fear of being the lone traitor in a party that punishes isolation like it's a blood sport. In the Senate, you can survive almost anything if you are not alone. But if you are alone, you become a warning label. So the real question tonight is not, why did Republicans move? The real question is, what changed the cost of staying still? Because at some point, the fear of jumping gets replaced by a different fear, the fear of being last on a sinking ship while everyone else quietly found the lifeboats. And that is the kind of fear senators actually respond to. This is why these moments don't happen as a slow drift. They happen as a snap. 1 minute you have stalemate, the next minute you have locked in. And the reason is structural. Senators are not just politicians, they are risk managers. They don't want to be heroic, they want to be positioned. Which brings us to what likely happened behind the scenes, a block formation. A few senators, call them the institutionalists, the retirees, the privately exhausted, decide they are done. But they also know they can't trickle out one by one. So they build a group big enough to change the story from defection to movement. That's the psychological trick. Once a group moves together, the definition changes. It stops being betrayal and becomes a turning point. The minute the narrative shifts, the fence sitters, those senators who never lead anything but always want to land on the winning side, suddenly feel the pressure to choose. And the pressure doesn't come from television. It comes from colleagues. It comes from closed doors. It comes from the sentence every senator dreads hearing from a party leader: I can't protect you if you're the last one holding the line. This is why 67 is so terrifying. Not because it's a number, because it signals that the protection system, years of discipline, threats, and loyalty rituals, has stopped working. The machine that was built to keep the party unified has started grinding in reverse. And once that machine reverses, it doesn't just punish the target. It punishes anyone still standing too close to him. To really understand why tonight feels different, you have to stop thinking about the Senate as a moral body and decide they are done. But they also know they can't trickle out one by privately exhausted, decide they are done. But they also know they can't trickle out one by one. So they build a group big enough to change the story from defection to movement. That's the psychological trick. Once a group moves together, the definition changes. It stops being betrayal and becomes a turning point. The minute the narrative shifts, the fence sitters, those senators who never lead anything but always want to land on the winning side, suddenly feel the pressure to choose. And the pressure doesn't come from television. It comes from colleagues. It comes from closed doors. It comes from the sentence every senator dreads hearing from a party leader. I can't protect you if you're the last one holding the line. This is why 67 is so terrifying, not because it's a number, because it signals that the protection system, years of discipline, threats, and loyalty rituals, has stopped working. The machine that was built to keep the party unified has started grinding in reverse. And once that machine reverses, it doesn't just punish the target, it punishes anyone still standing too close to him. To really understand why tonight feels different, you have to stop thinking about the Senate as a moral body and start thinking about it as a market. A market where fear, leverage, and future viability are traded constantly, even when no one is speaking out loud. For weeks, the internal whip count hovered in a dead zone, not collapsing, not advancing, just stuck. That is the most dangerous phase of any political crisis because it creates the illusion that time is on your side. The defense team believed that illusion. They assumed exhaustion would work in their favor. They assumed outrage would burn itself out. They assumed the base would remain loud enough to keep everyone frozen in place. But something subtle shifted. The conversation stopped being about the evidence and started being about endurance. Senators weren't asking, "Can I defend this?" They were asking,
"This robotic puppy is so lifelike."
It was asking, "Can you get the lights up?"
Who's a veterinarian. I've been a grandmother
so I can stay up.
How long can I survive this? And that's the moment when loyalty becomes conditional. Here's what doesn't show up on television. Donors don't yell. They don't tweet. They simply stop answering calls.
Hey, Janet.
And in Washington, silence from money is louder than any protest. When campaign finance chairs begin hearing the same phrase over and over, "We're going to sit this one out," the math changes instantly because senators know something the public often forgets. You can survive an angry base if you have money and infrastructure. You cannot survive without either. At the same time, private polling began circulating, not the kind you see splashed across cable news, but the internal numbers, the suburban erosion, the softness among independents, the warning signs that the brand itself was becoming radioactive. These weren't theoretical fears anymore. They were spreadsheets, and spreadsheets don't care about rallies. This is where leadership enters the story, not with speeches, but with silence. In the Senate, silence from leadership is not neutrality. It is permission. The moment leadership stops actively enforcing discipline, the system destabilizes. Senators interpret that absence as a signal. Do what you need to do. That's when the final group begins to move. Not the true believers, not the loud defenders, the quiet ones, the senators who never give fiery interviews, who always say they're reviewing the facts, and who survive by waiting until momentum becomes undeniable. Once those senators believe the count is real, once they are convinced that 67 is not aspirational but locked, the logic flips instantly. At that point, voting not guilty is no longer loyalty. It's exposure, and exposure is lethal in this town. This is the moment where history stops being abstract. Senators stop thinking about tomorrow's headline and start thinking about their obituary paragraph. They ask themselves how they will be described, as defenders of chaos or as reluctant participants in restoration. None of this requires courage. It requires timing. That's the part most people misunderstand. This wasn't bravery. It was synchronization. A collective decision to jump at the same moment so no one hits the ground alone. And once that synchronization happens, the outcome stops being a debate and becomes a formality. Which brings us to the final uncomfortable question. If the votes are truly there, what exactly forced the last few to cross the line? And what do they know that hasn't surfaced publicly yet? Now we get to the part of the story that never makes it into the official timelines. The moment when fear changes direction. For years, the gravitational force in this party pulled one way. Senators feared the base. They feared primaries. They feared being singled out, named, and destroyed. That fear kept the firewall intact, even when the facts became uncomfortable. But fear is not static. It migrates. And tonight, it migrated. What senators began to fear more than the base was irrelevance. Behind closed doors, the language shifted. It stopped being about defending the president and became about saving the institution. That phrase matters. In Washington, invoking the institution is how people justify doing things they know will enrage voters. It is the moral solvent that dissolves personal loyalty. And once that framing takes hold, the emotional weight changes. Voting to convict no longer feels like betrayal. It feels like maintenance. This is where the myth of sudden
I don't
courage
know how
collapses.
I
These
accidentally
senators didn't
deleted
wake
that.
up braver than they were yesterday. They woke up
Dorothy.
convinced that the future was moving without them. And in politics, being left behind is worse than
Purple
being
flower
wrong. Force was at work as
I
well.
accidentally deleted it.
Inevitability. Humans, even powerful ones, are deeply susceptible to momentum. When people believe an outcome is unavoidable, they align with it to preserve their status within the new order. That's not cynicism. It's survival behavior. Once word spread that the threshold had been crossed internally, resistance didn't just weaken, it evaporated.
I accidentally deleted where you was telling Purple Flower hi.
Because at that point, the question stopped being, should we do this, and became, where do I stand when it's done? That distinction is everything. You could see it in the statements that began appearing almost instantly. Carefully written, legally phrased, emotionally distant. These were not reactions. They were preparations. You don't release language like that unless you knew the ending before the vote was cast. And notice something else. There was no celebration, no victory laps, no triumphant speeches. That silence is revealing. It tells you this wasn't about vindication. It was about containment, about stopping the bleeding before it spread further. But containment always comes with consequences. Because the base is not an abstract force. It's millions of people who will wake up tomorrow feeling blindsided, furious, and stripped of agency. The senators who cross the line understand that. They're counting on one thing to protect them: time. Time dulls outrage. Time reframes narratives. Time allows a new normal to settle in. The real gamble isn't the vote itself. It's what happens after the shock wears off. And that brings us to the most dangerous phase of this entire saga. Not the conviction, but the reaction. Because once the system acts, the system has to absorb the backlash. And that's where the next move matters more than the last one. Here's the part that should make everyone stop and hold their breath. The vote is the easy part. What comes next is the reckoning. Because once the Senate crosses the 67 vote threshold, the system doesn't reset into calm. It enters its most unstable phase. The conviction doesn't end the story. It detonates it. The pressure that had been compressed inside closed rooms doesn't disappear. It explodes outward. Tonight, the Senate acted as an institution protecting itself. But tomorrow morning, the country wakes up as a collection of individuals reacting emotionally. And those two realities rarely align. The senators who voted to convict are betting on a dangerous assumption. That outrage burns hot but short. That voters will rage, post, protest, and then move on. That attention will shift. That a new storyline will crowd this one out. But that assumption has never truly been tested at this scale. Because this isn't just a president losing power. This is a movement being told by its own party that it no longer controls the machinery it thought it owned. And movements don't dissolve quietly. They fracture, they mutate, they look for new vessels.
So
that's
are
the
we
risk
have
no
to
one
be
can quantify.
expecting
The system may have done exactly what it
an
was designed
explosion
to do
tomorrow?
tonight, but systems don't vote. People do. And millions of people are about to decide whether they still believe the rules apply to them or only to those at the top. Watch closely what happens next.
Oh,
Watch
wow.
who steps forward to claim the vacuum. Watch how fast
Hi,
loyalty
Joseph.
realigns. Watch whether this moment produces renewal or rather
Hold on.
reacting emotionally. And those two move matters more than the last one. Here's the part that should make everyone stop and hold their breath. The vote is the easy part. What comes next is the reckoning. Because once the Senate crosses the 67 vote threshold,
They got
the
the
system doesn't
67
reset
vote.
into calm. It enters its most unstable phase. The conviction doesn't end the story. It detonates it. The pressure that had been compressed inside closed rooms doesn't disappear. It explodes outward. Tonight, the Senate acted as an institution protecting itself. But tomorrow morning, the country wakes up as a collection of individuals reacting emotionally.
Yeah.
And those two realities
So
rarely...
I was looking at another lady who said that they got the 67 votes, but she wasn't making it clear to me what that really meant. She's a lot more clear. It says Senate reaches 67 votes to convict him. So the other guy was talking about McConnell. So what I think what she is saying is that in the morning when it comes out that I guess shit's finna hit the fan. Because what he thought he had power over and control over, he's been backdoored to get that 67 votes. Before, when he was being impeached, he never got the 67 votes. This time, it means that some of the Republicans voted to impeach him.
The senators who crossed the line understand that. They're counting on one thing to protect them: time. Time dodges. That silence is revealing.
So now that's the silence, because I can't find it. So when I was looking for it, I can't find it. So when she's saying the silence speaks volumes, that's what she's saying. Because no one knows right now.
You don't release language like that unless you knew the ending before the vote was cast. And notice something else. There was no celebrated. Because at that point, the question stopped being, should we
I'm backing back up.
And in politics, being left behind is worse than being wrong. Another quiet force was at work as well: inevitability. Humans, even powerful ones, are deeply susceptible to momentum. When people believe an outcome is unavoidable, they align with it to preserve their status within the new order. That's not cynicism. It's survival behavior. Once word spread that the threshold had been crossed internally, resistance didn't just weaken, it evaporated. Because at that point, the question stopped being, should we do this, and became, where do I stand when it's done? That distinction is everything. You could see it in the statements that began appearing almost instantly. Carefully written, legally phrased, emotionally distant. These were not reactions. They were preparations. You don't release language like that unless you knew the ending before the vote was cast. And notice something else. There was no celebration, no victory laps, no triumphant speeches. That silence is revealing. It tells you this wasn't about vindication. It was about containment, about stopping the bleeding before it spread further. But containment always comes with consequences, because the base is not an abstract force. It's millions of people who will wake up tomorrow feeling blindsided, furious, and stripped of agency. The senators who crossed the line understand that. They're counting on one thing to protect them: time. Time dulls outrage. Time reframes narratives. Time allows a new normal to settle in. The real gamble isn't the vote itself. It's what happens after the shock wears off. And that brings us to the most dangerous phase of this entire saga. Not the conviction, but the reaction. Because once the system acts, the system has to absorb the backlash. And that's where the next move matters more than the last one. Here's the part that should make everyone stop and hold their breath. The vote is the easy part. What comes next is the reckoning. Because once the Senate crosses the 67 vote threshold, the system doesn't reset into calm. It enters its most unstable phase. The conviction doesn't end the story. It detonates it. The pressure that had been compressed inside closed rooms doesn't disappear.
Put all questions on a super chat or super sticker,
the Senate
please.
acted as an institution protecting itself. But tomorrow morning, the country wakes up as a collection of individuals reacting emotionally. And those two realities rarely align. The senators who voted to convict are betting on a dangerous assumption: that outrage burns hot but short, that voters will rage, post, protest, and then move on, that attention will shift, that a new storyline will crowd this one out. But that assumption has never truly been tested at this scale. Because this isn't just a president losing power. This is a movement being told by its own party that it no longer controls the machinery it thought it owned. And movements don't dissolve quietly. They fracture, they mutate, they look for new vessels. That's the risk no one can quantify. The system may have done exactly what it was designed to do tonight, but systems don't vote, people do. And millions of people are about to decide whether they still believe it. But that assumption has never truly been tested at this scale. Because this isn't just a president losing power. This is a movement being told by its own party that it no longer controls the machinery it thought it owned. And of individuals reacting emotionally. And those two realities rarely align. The senators who voted to convict are betting on a dangerous assumption: that outrage burns hot but short, that voters will rage, post, protest, and then move on, that attention will shift, that a new storyline will crowd this one out. But that assumption has never truly been tested at this scale. Because this isn't just a president losing power. This is a movement being told by its own party that it no longer controls the machinery it thought it owned. And movements don't dissolve quietly. They fracture, they mutate, they look for new vessels. That's the risk no one can quantify. The system may have done exactly what it was designed to do tonight, but systems don't vote, people do. And millions of people are about to decide whether they still believe the rules apply to them or only to those at the top. Watch closely what happens next. Watch who steps forward to claim the vacuum. Watch how fast loyalty realigns. Watch whether this moment produces renewal or radicalization. Because history doesn't judge moments by how cleanly institutions act. It judges them by what those actions unleash. And
so
here's
he
the
was
cliffhanger
backdoored.
no one in Washington wants to say out loud. If the Senate could move this fast to remove him, what else are they preparing to move on next? Because you don't pull a lever this big unless you're ready for what follows. This vote may close one chapter, but it opens a far more unpredictable one if you want to understand what comes next before the headlines catch up, who benefits, who panics, and who's already positioning for power. Make sure you're subscribed, turn on notifications, and stay with us because the vote...
Okay, one more. Russell, you didn't hear me say put all questions on a super chat or super sticker? That applies to you too, precious. Put all questions on a super chat or super sticker.
I get excited about the Subaru Share the Love event because Subaru retailers nationwide are giving back.
Giving back makes us who we are.
Well, tonight, with the world now wondering about the 10 co-conspirators of Jeffrey Epstein referred to in some of the Epstein files released today, it is worth considering. What would an innocent person do? What would someone who is mentioned in the Epstein files do if he or she believed that he or she is totally innocent of any wrongdoing with Jeffrey Epstein? Former President Bill Clinton's office put out a statement saying, quote, "We call on President Trump to direct Attorney General Bondi to immediately release any remaining materials referring to, mentioning, or containing
you see that,
a photograph
that box
of
down at the bottom?
Bill Clinton.
Where it has a dollar
And
sign
there it is.
in a box,
That is
hit
the model
it. It'll take you
for
to where
how
the
you
super
handle
chat
this situation
or
if
the
you are
super
in the
stickers
Epstein
are.
file.
It's, you can hit that little box at the bottom that has a dollar sign on it. You will see where it says membership, a super chat, super sticker. Or those three dots that's stacked on top of each other at the top right. If you hit that, it should take you, also allow you to see the super chat, super sticker. But I know that box at the bottom definitely will.
And you believe you did nothing wrong. Please feel free to now consider all of the prominent names you have heard this year associated with the Epstein.
No, I don't think you made money. I think that you think I'm gonna do all your research for you. So you think I'm gonna do the research and give the names and do all of that too? And I don't get no support? You done lost your mind. Unsubscribe and don't ever bring your ass over here again. You thirsty sap sucker. You want something for nothing. You're a Trump lover. Absolutely. You want something for nothing. So please unsubscribe. Thank you, Jamie.
Not demanded the immediate release of any materials referring to, mentioning, or containing a photograph of that person. Donald Trump has never demanded that. Donald Trump has done everything he could to prevent that from happening. Jeffrey Epstein's biggest business partner, Les Wexner, has never said, "Release everything about me that's in the Epstein files." And he is not saying it now, after his name emerged today in a 2019 Justice Department email titled Co-Conspirators. The email described attempts to subpoena the list of co-conspirators, which included Ghislaine Maxwell. A legal representative for Mr. Wexner told the New York Times that he was not a target of the federal investigation or considered a co-conspirator. He provided federal prosecutors with background information on Mr. Epstein and was never contacted again, the representative said. So, I guess that settles that. If a lawyer for Mr. Wexner of Ohio says he did nothing wrong, that must settle it. I would love to have that lawyer for Mr. Wexner of Ohio join us here on this
Joseph,
program.
he
and
never
tell us
should have
whether
been
he's
put in
responded to
office.
a grand jury subpoena and
Never.
whether he testified to the grand jury. I'd love to have Mr. Wexner of Ohio come here and tell us all about his relationship with Jeffrey Epstein, which no one has ever been able to understand or explain. Mr. Wexner is so much richer than Jeffrey Epstein could ever have dreamed of being, and no one's ever figured out why Les Wexner would be in business with Jeffrey Epstein in any way. So what was that all about? And we...
Say that again.
Said, so I guess that settles that. If a lawyer for Mr. Wexner of Ohio says he did nothing wrong, that must settle it. I would love to have that lawyer for Mr. Wexner of Ohio join us here on this program and tell us whether he's responded to a grand jury subpoena and whether he testified to the grand jury. I'd love to have Mr. Wexner of Ohio come here and tell us all about his relationship with Jeffrey Epstein, which no one has ever been able to understand or explain. Mr. Wexner is so much richer than Jeffrey Epstein could ever have dreamed of being. And
he may have just been Epstein, who groomed Epstein.
No one's ever figured out why Les Wexner would be in business with Jeffrey Epstein in any way. So what was that all about? And we patiently await Mr. Wexner's lawyer issuing a statement saying that they demand immediately the release of all information in the Epstein files about him and any photograph of him in the Epstein files. We patiently await that moment. There is no indication that Donald Trump was on the list of co-conspirators, but here's what Donald Trump said about Jeffrey Epstein's most important co-conspirator after she was convicted of sex trafficking with Jeffrey Epstein.
I just wish her well, frankly. I've met her numerous times over the years, especially since I lived in Palm Beach, and I guess they lived in Palm Beach. But I wish her well.
I guess.
Whatever it is.
I guess they live in Palm Beach.
Yes, he did see her numerous times over the years. New information from the Epstein files today revealed that Donald Trump flew on Jeffrey Epstein's plane in the 1990s more often than he has ever admitted. In fact, Donald Trump has told the lie that he never flew on that plane. At least 4 of the Trump flights on the Epstein plane included Ghislaine Maxwell among the passengers Donald Trump was flying with. Donald Trump wishes Ghislaine Maxwell well. Donald Trump did not issue a statement today demanding the immediate release of any remaining materials referring to, mentioning, or containing a photograph of Donald Trump. Another email about co-conspirators released today said, quote, of the 10 co-conspirators, 3 have been located in Florida and served grand jury subpoenas. 1 in Boston, 1 in New York City, and 1 in Connecticut were located and served. 4 of the 10 are outstanding with attempts having been made. 1 is a wealthy businessman in Ohio. The remaining 3 are currently out of pocket. The team is flying out tonight, tomorrow to various locations in Florida to interview approximately 25 victims. If you were a wealthy businessman in Ohio who knew Jeffrey Epstein and you think you did nothing wrong, wouldn't you release a statement today, just like Bill Clinton's, demanding the release of any materials referring to, mentioning, or containing a photograph of yourself? Les Wexner is a wealthy businessman in Ohio and has not released any statement like that. If you're one of the prominent people living in the Boston area who has been publicly associated with Jeffrey Epstein, wouldn't you release a statement today demanding the release of any materials referring to, mentioning, or containing a photograph of you If you thought you did nothing wrong, Bill Clinton is the only person mentioned in the Epstein files who issued a statement demanding the full release of any remaining materials referring to, mentioning, or containing a photograph of Bill Clinton. And so, investigative reporting will continue.
Bill says, show it.
Co-conspirators.
Thank you,
More
Jamie.
Documents
Thank you for the hot
Justice
cocoa.
Department might eventually identify those co-conspirators. But if you are a co-conspirator of Jeffrey Epstein's, your life changed today. And now it is only a matter of time. If you are a co-conspirator of Jeffrey Epstein's, you should know tonight that the clock is ticking on your secret. If you are a co-conspirator of Jeffrey Epstein's, you should know tonight that you have a rendezvous with the truth coming your way. Thanks entirely to a law passed by Congress to release the Epstein files, a law that could only be passed.
Good and sleepy, Jamie.
Not because any billionaire wanted it, but could only be passed because the victims of Jeffrey Epstein, who are if you are a co-conspirator of Jeffrey Epstein's, you should know tonight that you have a rendezvous with the truth coming your way. Thanks entirely to a law passed by Congress to release the Epstein files, a law that can only be passed, not because any billionaire wanted it, but could only be passed because the victims of Jeffrey Epstein, who are now the survivors of Jeffrey Epstein, brought the moral clarity to Washington that demanded the release of those files over Donald Trump's
long as it's hot.
Those files have been released and will continue to be released over the objection of Donald Trump's Attorney General, Donald Trump's FBI Director, Donald Trump's Deputy Attorney General, who is Donald Trump's personal criminal defense lawyer. They all told the world in April that there was no reason to release a single document from the Epstein files and that the case was absolutely closed.
Wow.
They told the world there were no co-conspirators.
Wow.
They told the world there was no possibility of ever investigating or prosecuting anyone else for any kind of involvement in the crimes of Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell. Donald Trump and his Attorney General and his Deputy Attorney General and his FBI Director have spent the year turning the Trump Justice Department into the Trump Criminal Defense Law Firm. The Trump Justice Department no longer represents the interests of the United States. The Trump Justice Department represents and defends Donald Trump. And that is why they fought the release of the Epstein files.
I lost $50,000 because I didn't buy a domain name. My advice, head to Wix and grab yours now. It's quick and it can make all the difference. Here's why it matters. Back in 2019,
we don't yet know how much of the redacting of the Epstein files involves redacting the word Trump.
We always wonder whether is this misconduct, is it negligence, like what is really going on here, right? So we really would like for, if we look at these files, look at this, this is a circus act. Like I've said it last night, this is ridiculous to the American people and the whole world is watching. We would like to ask the DOJ to do their job and unredact the names that need to be out there and let's stop protecting these men.
Do you have any sense of what's going on? I mean, why this is delayed, why we're getting potentially pieces of information that turn out to be false and then they release them anyway?
This information is nothing that we are even looking for. That's the sad part about this. None of this makes sense. Everyone is completely confused. Us survivors that know the story are confused. Can you imagine the public? We were just like looking for things that we don't even know how to look for them. When we go in the search library, it's very hard to find things. And everything that we do find there, it's just a 2019
I don't even remember what happened,
indictment.
Jamie.
So it really, it has brought no transparency whatsoever at this point. And we are very frustrated. We are really hoping that if the next batch of files does come out, we want to see the report for 1996. We want to know why the FBI or the DOJ or the government has not followed up with Maria Farmer. This is something very serious. This young woman made a serious accusation, and not an accusation, a claim. And if it was just an accusation, Why didn't they look into it further, right? If nobody thought it was real, why didn't they look into it? Why isn't there not an investigation being opened right now? This is something very, very serious. This could have stopped a long time ago. And now here we are, where many women have been abused, and now we're trying to, put all the pieces to the puzzle together, and the DOJ is just making it very hard for everybody.
I really think that, Bill and the whistleblowers have come out and really exposed that this is bigger than Trump. For the first time ever, we're getting a real sense of, a wider list of what you might call co-conspirators, potentially, or clients, right? The idea that nobody else was even charged. And again, everyone would be innocent until proven guilty in a court of law, right? We understand this, right? Ultimately, Maxwell was convicted.
Okay.
Jeffrey, I'm sure, if it went to the full conclusion, if he lived, probably would have had the book thrown at him. It was too much.
Now here we are, where many women have been abused, and now we're trying to, put all the pieces to the puzzle together, and the DOJ is just making it very hard for everybody.
Mm-hmm. I really think that, Bill and the whistleblowers have come out and really exposed that this is bigger than Trump. For the first time ever, we're getting a real sense of, a wider list of
it's bigger than Trump.
Co-conspirators, potentially, or clients.
But it definitely is,
right? The idea that nobody else was even charged. And again, everyone would be innocent until proven guilty in a court of law, right? We understand this, right? Ultimately, Maxwell was convicted. Jeffrey, I'm sure, if it went to the full conclusion, if he lived, probably would have had the book thrown at him. It was too much evidence. But the reality is, I don't think they're alone.
Awesome, Jamie. Way to go.
The thousands, seemingly, of photos, the hundreds of witnesses, people directly affected.
Wish you well.
But also just people that happen to be at these very lavish parties. Right? Now we have new rumors, just really, chilling stuff about Trump and a boat and somebody who was 13, and what they did to the child of that 13-year-old. There's a whole thing. None of this has been confirmed in a court of law. But since Bill came out, and since we've seen over the last couple months, more and more whistleblowers come out and speak and do so bravely,
trust the process.
We're getting a sense that this is about more than two people. This is about more than Jeff and Ghislaine. It is about them. We're not trying to downplay them, but it's about far more than them. There's a wider list of people that were.
I agree, sales, but it's going to be people in Israel.
Build a list, and I feel Trump's on that list.
Of course, he's on the list.
Hers is what real
we
weight
just
loss care
showed
looks
you
like.
where
Hers goes beyond
he had a
medication alone by
13-year-old
offering access to personalized weight loss
pregnant,
treatment
but
plans
he's
that are designed
protecting
to support
Israel
you.
as well. Okay, y'all. I think that.
I'm pointing to Mike Lindell. That man suffered. The FBI thugs went up to him and they took away everything he had. He suffered, and Mrs. Lindell, and he never changed his mind. He said that election of 2020 was rigged, and he's more of a believer today than he was even 4 years ago.
What's up, folks and fellas? Today we've got a story that Donald Trump definitely did not want to be talking about. So, like, comment, subscribe, all of that, and let's get into it. In a move that has political watchers scratching their heads, Trump just lost a key swing state, and instead of addressing it or talking about it or even making one of the usual tweet storms, he's gone completely silent.
Oh, Jello shots.
No rallies, no tweets, no public statements, just total radio silence. Maybe he's downstairs in the bunker. And if you know Trump, that tells you a lot when he's quiet, right? Trump has a couple of rules he seems to ignore no matter what. One is pretty simple. You are what you eat. Not that he's paying attention to that one. So he eats a lot of, pork and that kind of stuff. And but the second rule, you can be judged by the company you keep, right? And that right there is the heart of this story. Who Trump surrounds himself with, who he praises, who he endorses. These are the people that end up shaping his political success or failure. He hangs out with, all of these dictators like Putin and Xi Jinping and the North Korean leader. He's like, oh, he's a good guy, he's a good leader. And Erdogan. He likes all of the fascists and all the dictators, and, anyone else he's on the fence about. And today it's clear that this sentiment has caught up with him. Let's start with someone you all know, Mike Lindell, the My Pillow guy. Yes, that one. Post-2020, Lindell became the face of the Trump election fraud movement. It was a scam, I'm telling you. The entire election. Oh, it was the machines. It's all the machines, I'm telling you. Is that good? All right, I can do better. He was convinced that the election was stolen. He poured millions of dollars into that. This guy, wacko. He said he came out of doing drugs and turned to Jesus and whatnot. He turned to Jesus and he stopped doing cocaine or whatever. And I mean, great, excellent. But like, come on. Maybe he still does it? I don't know. I'm not allegations. I'm not saying anything. But he's and listen, hey, I'm okay with that too. Like, hey, live your truth, my man. Just saying. He spent years claiming that he had some secret plans and that he knew exactly what to do and that he had a lot of powerful people like General Flynn on his side, and it was the machines and the companies and the votes and the this and all the other Alex Jones bullshit. And yet, despite all of that confidence, all that swagger, he kept losing. Every single lawsuit failed. Efforts to overturn results completely flopped. And yeah, remember how Trump tried to overturn the election and that completely failed, and yet somehow he's still the president again? That was a whole thing. In Trump's eyes, though, none of his failures matter because he's loyal and he'll stick with Trump no matter what, and he's proved it. He's sunk millions of dollars into trying to claim that the election was stolen. He has proven to Trump that he's completely loyal to him. So Trump is like,
Lord.
You know what?
All the good stuff comes
bills.
out
Cooking
late.
leads to bad things, like some sodas who cook the flavor out of their ingredients.
So sleepy.
Papa doesn't cook,
is
it's
this
Cole's
one? Hold on.
crafted.
About what your values are. Republicans do care about what your values are. Republicans do not care about healthcare costs, affordability, and access to healthcare. And don't believe me on that. I've got 30 years of proof, of data that shows every chance they're in power, every time they have an opportunity to do something, not only are they not in favor of doing anything to fix it, they're trying to tear it down. When Donald Trump had power last time, they tried to tear down the Affordable Care Act. They've been promising to try to tear down the Affordable Care Act again. They did everything they could to gut that Affordable Care Act effort back in 2010 and 2011, and every single chance that they have a power, unprecedented, bicameral, across the board power, they'll do nothing to lift a finger to help the American people.
And with that track record that Joel referred to, plus the effects of the government shutdown, everyone knows who's on what side.
Yeah.
This is not something that's confusing to people. And that is a front and center affordability issue that Democrats have a huge advantage on, and a very large number of people are going to get hit hard. And I think Republicans are getting in deeper and deeper and deeper trouble all the time.
Folks like Brian Fitzpatrick, he seems to understand where the vulnerabilities are. I want to play Speaker Johnson's reaction to Republicans crossing the aisle today. Take a listen.
Cross the aisle.
Have you lost control of the House? I have not lost control. We have the smallest majority in U.S. history. Okay.
The smallest majority.
There are processes and procedures in the House that
smallest
are less
majority
frequently used when there are larger majorities.
Round robin here. I would like everyone's take on if Speaker Johnson is in fact losing control. John, I'll start with you.
Absolutely. Well, he's never had control of the House. Donald Trump's had control of the House because he was able to take that slender majority and make them
I saw that yesterday,
in the
Jamie.
Administration. But Mike Johnson is not a figure of strength or leadership. He is a flunky for Donald Trump. He is correct that he has an extremely slender margin. It's not easy to operate in that situation. Nancy Pelosi managed to get a lot of things done with some narrow margins for a while, but it's not a question of losing it. He never had it, and this is a consequence of Trump getting weaker.
Michael, you were in the
Trump getting weaker.
That was my video. I was behind that camera. I've been doing a lot of reporting on this question. I've spoken to a lot of House Republicans, and the consensus I'm getting is that folks are very frustrated with his leadership, right? They were frustrated with the process of the big, beautiful bill. A lot of them did not like that strategy of keeping the House out for those 6 weeks during the shutdown. They wished that they were in town. And now the third thing, everything comes in threes. A three is a trend. The third thing is they're not happy with how he's handling these ACA subsidies. They recognize that millions of Americans
Americans are going to see their premiums skyrocket. Hey, this issue polls well, and they want to be able to vote on it. Now, all that being said, those frustrations exist, but there's no appetite right now to try and get rid of Mike Johnson, right? If I mention Kevin McCarthy in the motion to vacate, a shiver's going to go up everybody's spine, right? So no one has an appetite for that. In fact, last week I had reported that Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene was actually talking to other Republicans, gauging support for a potential motion to vacate. Of course, tomorrow was her last day in Washington, in the Capitol, of legislative day in the House. She was weighing to see if there would be enough support to bring that motion to vacate. There isn't. You need at least 9. There isn't enough to bring it. There's no appetite, but certainly those frustrations exist. So sort of the juncture we're at right now is, the question is, if, will Mike Johnson be Speaker in a year, right? Or will he be GOP leader in a year? Elise Stefanik said publicly that if a vote were held today, Mike Johnson would no longer be Speaker. I heard that also from another House Republican. So again, to bring it all together, there are these frustrations. People are not happy with his recent play calls, but months from a midterm election where Republicans are already facing an uphill battle, big questions about who the alternative would be. There's no appetite for that. But future looking, certainly, it could be a future without Mike Johnson.
This bill sets health care for the American people even back further. And what it is, it's a return to all the failed plans they've had in the past, where people pay a lot of money for very little coverage. And many things are just not included. When we saw similar plans in 2017, there was no maternity
I know the
care
farmers
coverage.
are.
There was no,
especially when he gave that money to Argentina,
services for people, very limited mental health, sort of the things that people need for their families. And what it really was saying is, we are going to ignore the entire health crisis that we've created. We are going to ignore the fact that premiums are skyrocketing for people, $1,000, $2,000, $3,000 more a month. And we will just proceed with our plan, which is to take people's health care funding, whether it's Medicaid, the ACA subsidies, veterans' health benefits, Medicare, medical research, and use that money for the permanent tax cuts for the very wealthiest. That's their plan, and it is just a disgrace and a huge disservice to families who need to be able to afford and access care.
Madam Whip, all of the attention in this conversation has gone to Republicans, and I think that is for very good reason. There is a lot of pressure on them right now. But I want to talk for a second about Democrats and what Minority Leader Jeffries was able to pull off. This is from Punchbowl. He played his hand wisely during this Obamacare cliff fight. Jeffries was under pressure to throw his support behind a pair of other discharge petitions, one authored by Fitzpatrick and another by Representative Josh Gottheimer of New Jersey, but he didn't. Jeffries bet that the moderates would see the 214 Democratic signatures on his clean 3-year ACA subsidies petition and sign on, and they did. What is the lesson then moving forward?
We have to believe in what our values are, and we knew the right thing was a clean extension of these tax subsidies for 3 years. That gives people time to be able to afford and access care. It's this cliff effect that they set up, that within a few days from now, the end of the month, these tax credits disappear overnight. They talk a lot about reforms, but they haven't implemented any, and they haven't come and tried to negotiate a solution. And so we stuck with what we knew was the right plan, and we banked on we would if they had come up with an amendment, we would have looked at it and tried to meet them in the middle. But they have refused to do that for an entire year. And what we also knew was that we can't forget the 3-year was actually a bipartisan vote in the Senate. So we already knew that we had Republican senators, that we could build on that number if we can get it through the House. And now what looks will be...
Hold on to your hats, folks, because Washington just experienced an earthquake that registered off the political Richter scale. 20 Republican senators, yes, 20. Just packed their bags, metaphorically speaking, and walked right out of the GOP tent, straight into the arms of the Democrats. Is this a political realignment?
Did y'all hear
or
that?
Did someone just forget to pay the party's health care bill? This isn't just a few disgruntled politicians. It's a
had Republican senators that we could build on that number if we can get it through the House. And now what looks will be...
Hold on to your hats, folks, because Washington just experienced an earthquake that registered off the political Richter scale. 20 Republican senators, yes, 20, just packed their bags, metaphorically speaking, and walked right out of the GOP tent, straight into the arms of the Democrats. Is this a political realignment? Or did someone just forget to pay the party's health care bill? This isn't just a few disgruntled politicians. It's a mass exodus, a political conscious uncoupling of epic proportions. At its heart are two deeply divisive issues: the future of healthcare in America and a growing chasm of trust in the Republican Party's current leadership. What we're witnessing isn't just a minor squabble. It's a seismic shift that could redefine the American political landscape for a generation. Imagine 20 seasoned politicians who've spent their careers under one banner suddenly deciding the grass is greener, or at least less thorny, on the other side. This isn't a casual stroll across the aisle. It's a full-blown defection, driven by what they claim are irreconcilable differences over fundamental policy.
Oh, it's a divorce.
And the very direction of their former party.
It's definitely a divorce.
The twin pillars of this political divorce: healthcare policy and the alleged leadership crisis within the Republican Party. First, healthcare. For decades, this has been a political football, kicked back and forth, with varying degrees of success and public frustration. The Republican platform has generally advocated for market-based solutions, deregulation, and repealing and replacing the Affordable Care Act. Democrats, conversely, lean towards expanding government's role, strengthening existing programs, and ensuring universal access, often through public options or single-payer systems. So, why would 20 Republicans suddenly decide the Democratic approach to healthcare is more appealing, or at least less problematic? It's likely a cocktail of factors. Perhaps they represent states where the GOP's proposed healthcare reforms were deeply unpopular, leading to immense constituent pressure. Maybe they genuinely believe that the Republican Party's stance has become untenable, offering solutions that simply don't address the core issues of affordability and access for everyday Americans. Or, dare I say it, perhaps they looked at the numbers, saw the public sentiment, and realized that continually trying to dismantle existing structures without a viable, widely accepted alternative was a losing battle. It's like trying to fix a leaky faucet by just turning off the water to the entire house. Eventually, someone's going to notice they can't shower. Then there's the elephant in the room, or rather, the herd of elephants, the Republican Party's leadership crisis. This isn't a new phenomenon, but it appears to have reached a boiling point. A leadership crisis can manifest in many ways: a lack of clear vision, an inability to unite diverse factions within the party, an over-reliance on ideological purity tests, or simply a perceived failure to effectively govern. These 20 senators might have felt increasingly marginalized, their moderate voices drowned out by more extreme elements. Or perhaps they simply lost faith in the ability of current leadership to navigate the complex challenges facing the nation. It's tough to stay on a team when you feel like the coach is calling plays from a different sport, or worse, from a different planet. The immediate impact of this mass defection is nothing short of monumental. In the Senate, this instantly shifts the balance of power, giving Democrats a much more comfortable, if not outright dominant, majority. This means legislative priorities that were once dead on arrival under a divided Senate could now sail through. Think about it. Healthcare reform, climate change initiatives, infrastructure bills. The legislative landscape just got a whole lot greener for the Democratic agenda. For the Republican Party, this is a devastating blow, not just in terms of numbers, but in prestige and future viability. It raises serious questions about their identity, their appeal, and whether they can recover from such a significant internal fracture. It's like losing 20 of your star players right before the championship game. You're not just down in numbers, you're down in morale and strategy. Now, let's address the elephant in the room's cousin, the bias in the room. Depending on which cable news channel you're watching, these 20 senators are either heroes saving democracy or villains who just stole the party's lunch money. It's crucial to acknowledge that there are multiple, often conflicting perspectives on this event, and each holds a kernel of truth from one viewpoint, these senators are being hailed as courageous pragmatists. They're seen as individuals who prioritize the needs of their constituents and the stability of the nation over rigid party loyalty. They might argue that the Republican Party had drifted too far from its foundational principles, becoming more focused on obstruction than on constructive governance. For them, this wasn't an abandonment of principles, but a realignment with what they believe is right for the country, even if it meant a political divorce. They're the ones saying, "It's not me, it's you, GOP." On the flip side, many staunch Republicans and conservative commentators are undoubtedly viewing this as a profound betrayal. They might label these senators as Republicans in name only, rhinos, opportunists who lacked the conviction to fight for conservative ideals. From this perspective, these defectors have abandoned their base, their promises, and their party at a critical juncture, effectively handing power to the opposition. They might argue that these senators were never truly committed to the conservative movement and have simply revealed their true colors. It's the political equivalent of finding out your favorite band's lead singer secretly, and quite surprisingly, prefers polka music. And then there's the Democratic perspective. While undoubtedly welcoming the influx of new members and the shift in power, there's also a nuanced view. Some might see this as a genuine opportunity for bipartisan cooperation, bringing more moderate voices into their caucus. Others might be wary, wondering if these new additions will truly align with the Democratic agenda, or if they represent a more conservative wing that could complicate future legislative efforts. It's like inheriting a beautiful, slightly used car. You're happy to have it, but you still check the oil and kick the tires. Ultimately, this unprecedented defection is a stark reminder that American politics is rarely black and white. It's a complex tapestry woven with individual convictions, constituent pressures, ideological battles, and the ever-present struggle for power. It forces us to question the very nature of party loyalty and what it means to represent a diverse electorate in an increasingly polarized nation. As we move forward, it's more important than ever to approach these developments with a critical eye and an open mind. Don't let the headlines or the loudest voices dictate your understanding. Seek out diverse perspectives, analyze the motivations, and consider the long-term implications. This isn't just about who sits in which chair. It's about the direction of our country and the health of our democracy. So, grab your popcorn because this political drama is just getting started. And the next act promises to be even more intriguing.
If you have SNAP or Medicaid,
they say it's just getting started, y'all.
You may qualify for a free iPhone or Samsung.
Can I go to sleep now?
10 gigabytes of data. Apply online in just 2 minutes.
Can I go to sleep now? They say it's just getting started. Some things happened over the holidays. Wow. Yeah, yeah. So, can I get some sleep and see what pops off in the morning? But all they're doing is reading this line by line. Thank you, Jamie. Joseph, what's that for? What's all that for? What is that, the look? That solemn look. What are you trying to say to me? Joseph? What are you saying? Huh? 12 Republicans. Yeah, this is that fake. They did, this is fake. This is not Jeffrey Epstein. You can look at the head and the body and know that this happy holidays to you all. They're trying to act like, I don't want to push the wrong button and y'all see me laying in this bed. that this is that is not Jeffrey Epstein. And again, I'm going to ask any and everybody, how can you HANG yourself and you sitting on the floor? Can anybody explain to me how can you HANG yourself sitting on the floor? Where they do that at? And yeah, and they watching you do it. I mean, how can you do that? And wait a minute, because his room had 50 minutes. First of all, I'm gonna ask this again. How do you get all of that orange and you're on suicide watch, and you're only supposed to have one sheet? What is all that orange stuff? And where did you get that dark orange from? So you telling me that the guards, when they check on you, they didn't see that you had 10 sheets? Where's this dark orange at? Yep. Loving itself. Look. Did you see all of that in that room? Did you see all of this in that room? How did he get all of that? Who gave it to him? That's staged. They're trying to play in our face. Can I go to sleep now?
Memphis a collection.
I still can't go to sleep. Janet, you done went to sleep and woke back up. Was that Janet? Who? Jazzy. Oh, that was you, Jamie. I'm sorry. I couldn't see. I just want to know how they do that. I mean, don't teach nobody how to do it. But I thought he was, these people are crazy. That man, I'm telling you, I think he's still alive. He over in Israel somewhere. And somebody said they, okay, so where did I put that? Where did I put that? Oh, man, I gotta find it. Somebody spotted Charlie Kirk. I gotta find it. I gotta find where I put it. And I mean, it was a real Charlie Kirk sighting, for real. I think I know where I put it, but I need to double check. Hold on. Oh, yeah. Because the more they show us that stuff right there, him sitting on the ground, and that was supposed to be it. Mm-mm. Mm-mm.
Our society and our planet face many ongoing challenges.
I think
Some
I sent
will
it
take
to
decades
myself.
to solve. And while the
I
investment
was laughing the whole time.
Protecting Epstein's co-conspirators and the powerful men who have used women.
We have some breaking news to share with you. The Department of Justice says it has uncovered, and I'm quoting here, a million...
Oh, yeah, no, I've seen that. That's where they told us that it was the prosecutors.
More documents potentially related
they
to
came
the
up with
Jeffrey
those
Epstein
extra extra million.
Caitlin Polance is here. Caitlin, with these
See
documents, do we know if they're above and beyond all of the ones that they already have? And if so, what that's going to mean to the release?
Yeah, this is quite a Christmas news drop, Sarah. The Justice Department now revealing that they are still discovering files from Jeffrey Epstein and all of the different parts of the Justice Department that had files related to him in various investigations. In this statement, this was just out about 20 minutes ago, the Justice Department now says the Southern District of New York, so that's their prosecutor's office out of Manhattan,
the prosecutor's
and the FBI
office
have informed the Department of Justice they've uncovered over 1 million more documents potentially related to the Jeffrey Epstein case. The impact there, it means that the Department of Justice is going to be processing these before they can all be posted transparently under the law for weeks. Here's a little bit more of the statement. We have lawyers working around the clock to review and make the legally required redactions to protect victims, and we will release the documents as soon as possible. Due to the mass volume of material, this process may take a few more weeks. This comes on the heels as well of yesterday. Prosecutors in the Southern District of Florida, so in and around Miami, being asked to volunteer their time and jump on board.
Just released a statement about her case, about her Trump just got hit with yet All right, folks, we have some major breaking news this evening and absolutely no time to waste. Donald Trump just got hit with yet another Epstein bombshell. His week from hell just got even worse, if you can even believe it. The family of Ghislaine Maxwell just released a statement about her case, about her trial, and about her appeal to the Supreme Court, which is happening all while this conversation surrounding Epstein and Donald Trump is taking place all over the country. So I want to get into the statement by the Maxwell family where they mention Donald Trump by name. But before I do that, I want to give you some context on the relationship between Donald Trump and Ghislaine Maxwell and why this is so bad for Donald Trump. Now, first and foremost, we just learned recently, according to the Daily Mail, which is a right-wing outlet, but according to them, they have sources confirming the story, that she is ready to reveal the truth, quote-unquote, about the client list, and she's willing to testify before Congress about what she knows. But so far, according to reports, she's been blocked by Republicans. Republicans are saying, no, Maxwell, 63, is the only person behind bars currently serving any prisons.
Y'all hear that?
Happening all wide.
I can't go to sleep here.
All right, folks, we
y'all hear this?
Breaking news this evening and absolutely no time to waste. Donald Trump just got hit with yet another Epstein bombshell. His week from hell just got even worse, if you can even believe it.
I don't know. Keep going.
Family of Ghislaine Maxwell just released a statement about her case, about her trial, and about her appeal to the Supreme Court, which is happening all while this conversation surrounding Epstein and Donald Trump is taking place all over the country. So I want to get into this statement by the Maxwell family where they mention Donald Trump by name. But before I do that, I want to give you some context on the relationship between Donald Trump and Ghislaine Maxwell and why this is so bad for Donald Trump. Now, first and foremost, we just learned recently, according to the Daily Mail, which is a right-wing outlet, but according to them, they have sources confirming the story, that she is ready to reveal the truth, quote unquote, about the client list, and she's willing to testify before Congress about what she knows. But so far, according to reports, she's been blocked by Republicans. Republicans are saying, no, Maxwell, 63, is the only person behind bars currently serving any prison sentence for what Epstein did. Additionally, Epstein's victims argued that they had been passed around as toys to wealthy friends and billionaires and associates.
Wow. Wow. Wasn't expecting that.
Epstein files. This email from leadership in the department said they needed volunteers. It was an emergency. They understood it was the holidays, but there are more documents than they have enough people to reviewing right now. They need more hands on deck. Sarah?
This is going to fuel all sorts of questions about how the DOJ has handled this, both the left and the right, both going after the DOJ. How does this all fit in with the law that has been put in place that the president signed, the Transparency Act as well? It requires that they had put these out way earlier altogether, and now here we are.
The requirement was that they would all have been released last Friday. That was the day for all of the files to become transparent that was mandated for the Justice Department. They did not meet that deadline. And there's another deadline upcoming, January 3rd. That is the day when the Department of Justice is going to have to tell Congress, here's everything we did to redact in these files and the reasons for those redactions. If they're not even through all of the documents by then, they're digging a hole that already is reaching a lot of people and getting a lot of public and political criticism for it. There are members of Congress calling for contempt for the Attorney General for not meeting the deadline, and others who want to go to court. It is not over. There are more files, and there will also be much more reaction as well. Sarah?
Yeah, and we could have some of the files, not the million they haven't gone through, but some of the files that they have gone through already put out in any moment now. In the next couple of days, we're expecting those as well. And no, you will be all over it and working really hard through the holiday. So I thank you, Caitlin Polantz, for joining us today with that breaking news.
The U.S. Justice Department says it has just discovered 1 million more documents that could potentially be related to the Jeffrey Epstein case. The department issued a statement saying lawyers are working around the clock to review these documents and make any legally required redactions, a process that it admits may take a few more weeks. Now, the deadline to release all of the materials came and went last Friday. Reaction from the top Democrat on the House Oversight Committee was swift. Congressman Robert Garcia released a statement that says, the White House is openly engaged in a cover-up protecting Epstein's co-conspirators and the powerful men who abused women and girls. It's outrageous that the DOJ has illegally withheld over 1 million documents from the public. Now, to talk about all of this with us is our Kevin Lipdak. He's been following the president during this holiday season and joins us from West Palm Beach in Florida. I mean, Kevin, I just have to start with, I can't get my head around this. How can 1 million more documents be found? Where were they? And this is past deadline. Can you explain this to me?
Yeah, it is astounding. And what the Justice Department said is that they came from the U.S. Attorney's Office in the Southern District of New York. And this was the office that had been prosecuting Epstein. It was also prosecuting his accomplice, Ghislaine Maxwell. And so what these documents seem to be from is those sort of proceedings that occurred when Jeffrey Epstein was still alive and when they were prosecuting Maxwell as well. But it's an astounding figure. And remember, we just heard on Sunday from Todd Blanche, who's the number 2 at the Justice Department, that even at that point, they still had 1 million documents to get through. They had, 200 lawyers pouring through them and redacting them. And so the task for the Justice Department, is clearly a monumental one. We got a little glimpse of that as well yesterday when we reported that there was a senior Justice Department official who emailed career prosecutors in Florida, in the Southern District of Florida, asking them to work through the holiday stretch on some of these redactions, sort of acknowledging that this was going to be an all hands on deck effort to try and get these documents redacted and released, well past now the deadline. And so that is what's underway here. But it all kind of, I think, builds to a picture here of a Justice Department really scrambling to get their arms around this. They did have 30 days from when Congress passed this law to the deadline, which occurred on Friday, to get all these documents out. When you talk to officials there, they say that that was just not nearly enough time to pour through the material that they had. And it has led to frustration, certainly in Congress. So you hear talk from some of the lawmakers who co-sponsored this bill about potentially bringing Pam Bondi, the Attorney General, up for contempt. It's also led to a degree of frustration at the White House because they want this out. They don't want this drip, drip, drip of documents and having to react to them every couple of days. And so it doesn't make anyone, I think, pleased at how this process has been going. Selma.
I want to talk a little bit more about the White House's position, because you just brought that up. You said they don't want this drip, 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 but at the same time, when the last batch was released, we saw that the White House seemed to be downplaying it, even questioning the authenticity of some of the documents. What is President Trump's position going to be here going forward when you're talking about 1 million more documents, potentially 1 million that were already on the plate?
I'm stepping out of the everyday to see Saudi through my lens.
I'm trying to quickly look for this sighting before I go to bed. I don't want to forget.
My doctor told me I needed to eat healthier to lower my A1C and naturally boost my GLP-1. I didn't know where to start.
How is he going to position himself on this?
Well, it seems like it depends on who's in the documents, doesn't it? Because on Friday, when the most interesting material related to Bill Clinton, you didn't hear anyone in the White House downplaying it. Instead, they sort of amplified it, sort of tweeting out photos of Bill Clinton in a hot tub. It was exactly the opposite when the most interesting material was about President Trump. And at that point, you saw the Justice Department do something quite extraordinary, which was to use their own social media accounts to kind of go to bat for him. And even in one case, which was the case of that sort of disgusting letter that was supposedly written from Jeffrey Epstein from prison, out and out say that it was false. And so the strategy seems to depend on who is actually in some of these documents. There is, I think, a degree of frustration at the White House that this is all sort of obscuring what the president is doing. There are some corners of the White House who think that the Justice Department has whiffed all of this, to use the word that Susie Wiles used, the chief of staff, to describe how this has been playing out for the last several months. But I think when you talk to officials, they are very acutely aware that this is something they're going to have to keep dealing with for at least the foreseeable future.
I mean, just a mind-boggling story. 1 million more documents potentially related to Jeffrey Epstein now found. A DOJ that is scrambling, a White House that is scrambling. Thank you so much, Kevin, for walking us through all of that. Thank you.
Okay, y'all, I gotta go to sleep. Hopefully I'll find it tomorrow. They finna start snitching. Absolutely. Absolutely finna start snitching. I think they already have. I think what's his name? Dan Bongino. I think he's quitting. And when he also may be the one who turned over the million documents. Bongino. since he quit. Yeah, since he quit, I gotta find that Charlie Kirk sighting. Oh my God, cause the girl was so funny. Let me see if it's here. It was so funny. Cause the guy didn't know what to say when she asked him, was he Charlie Kirk? And he said no. And she said, well, what's your name? I think he said John. And she said, John Kirk? Oh my God, how funny. Because she was like, boy, stop playing. You know you Charlie Kirk. Oh my goodness, where is it? Let me see if I can find it real quick. It got to be over here. Because he was a security guard. He was security. She was like, are you my friend? That's not it. Hold on. Let me try to get over here and find it real quick. Because I almost forgot about it. Until we was talking about, oh, excuse me. What is this? So we was talking about, oh boy, what is this?
People on TikTok and Reddit showed a way to actually unredact one of the Epstein files, so we decided to take a look and see for ourselves. This is the Justice Department's new...
That ain't it. What is this one? Let me see. That's Dave Chappelle. That ain't it. That ain't it. I'm 47. So that's probably why I never heard of him. Never heard of who? Oh, Charlie Kirk. Yeah, yeah, no. I hadn't heard of him either. Hold on. What is this? Baking soda. What is this one? No, it's not it. I be having so much good stuff. That's why I don't know why y'all be playing with me with the light, but I be having so much good stuff. That's that boy. What is this about Cash Patel? Oh yeah, he in trouble about that unredacted stuff. Cash Patel, he caught lying. Yeah, I'm really trying to find this real quick without having to sit up. Hold on. Found it.
Johnny?
No, Charlie?
Wait a minute. Found it. Let me sit up. Oh my goodness. How much juice on this phone? Now I'm going to go back out. But look at him, y'all. Look. Let me take it down. Let me take it. Let me take it down. What y'all think? What you think? Hold on, let me be able to hold it this way. Officer Charlie. Hold on, let me make it start over. Let me start over. Hold on. I wanted to come on with the volume.
Johnny?
No, Charlie?
No, honey.
Hold on, y'all.
Excuse me, officer? Is your name Charlie?
Johnny?
No, Charlie?
No, honey, it's not Charlie.
No?
No.
What's your name? John?
Yeah.
John Kirk?
No, not John Kirk.
You look just like my friend Charlie.
Oh.
Can I pick up a sticker, officer?
Yeah, you can.
Can you please tell me when to turn on Rainbow, officer? Face back? Oh, excuse me, officer? Is your name Charlie?
Johnny?
No, Charlie?
No, honey, it's not Charlie.
No?
No.
What's your name? John?
Yeah.
John Kirk?
It's like he didn't even want to say John.
No, not John Kirk.
You look just like my friend Charlie.
Oh.
Can I pick up a sticker, officer?
Yeah, you can.
Can you please tell me when to turn on Rainbow, officer? Face back? Oh, excuse me, officer? Is your name Charlie?
Johnny?
No, Charlie?
No, honey, it's not Charlie.
No?
No.
What's your name?
John?
John?
Yeah.
What
John
y'all
Kirk?
think?
No,
Was that a Charlie Kirk?
You look just like
And
my
it's
friend
funny
Charlie.
because he got on like military officer, and we know
Can you please
that.
tell me when to turn on Rainbow, officer? Face back? Oh, excuse me, officer? Is your name Charlie?
Johnny?
No, Charlie?
No, honey, it's not Charlie.
No?
No.
What's your name?
John?
John?
Yeah.
John Kirk?
It's like he wasn't expecting for her to ask what's his name.
You look just like my friend Charlie.
Oh.
That's creepy. He looks
Can I
like
pick up a
him.
sticker, officer?
Yeah, you can.
Can you please tell me when to turn on Rainbow, officer? Face back? Oh, excuse me, officer? Is your name Charlie?
Johnny?
No, Charlie?
No, honey, it's not Charlie.
No?
No.
What's your name? John?
Yeah.
John Kirk?
No, not John Kirk.
You look just like my friend Charlie.
She said you look just like my friend Charlie.
Can I pick up a sticker, officer?
Yeah, you can.
Can you please tell me when to turn on Rainbow, officer? Face back?
Across the Midwest, when the local
Oh,
party
excuse me, officer? Is your name Charlie?
Johnny?
No, Charlie?
Pitch the idea.
No, honey, it's not Charlie.
No?
Organization.
What's your name?
USA around the ideas of free markets, smaller government, American exceptionalism, and saying that there can be a new way to do youth outreach, and that the conservative movement has been more stale in its outreach than it should have been. And look where we are 6 years later. But I can tell you, in Illinois, we from Illinois, we say we have term limits, a little different than most states. It's 1 term in office, 1 term in jail. So we asked for our governor's cell number.
So what y'all think?
One more. My grandmother was a lifelong.
I mean, Charlie been gone for what, 3-4 months? I mean, Charlie, we don't know what he look like right now. The the way they be cloning folks and reptilians, and it's just, and why this man didn't know his name, and then he got all kind of timid. Y'all, they look like him. Yeah, I don't know. And why did he have to come back as an officer, knowing that all of this stuff with the CIA and the military bases and all of that? We had already talked about the Island Boys earlier in their clone. Not the, yeah, I mentioned cloning. Y'all, they look just like Charlie Kirk. I ain't gonna even lie. And she said, you look like my friend Charlie. Can I go to sleep now? It is 4 o'clock in the morning. Can I go to sleep now? I remember that. A phony wax hand. Absolutely. Absolutely. About the boys that was raised on by Epstein on Epstein Island. I think one of them boys got cloned. Let me find it real quick. It's right here. I'm back here now. I just looked at it. The Island Boys. He said he was this lady right here.
You guys understand money, right? So is that Mrs. Rockefeller or is that Tom Hanks? Those are both the same sex. So which is which? You guys think I'm jealous? I want my fucking money back, bitch. Which is which? This is a man in a transgender flag swimming suit. Can I make this any more fucking clear? Any ties to Trump? You think look at me. Do you think I'm jealous of this? Have you seen my body that's real? Minus breast implants, that's what I look like. Natural. No surgery. Born that way. Don't even work out, bitch. Now get in the game. The Sacklers killed my mom. That's a man. This is a woman. That's a man. This is a man. This is also a man-child. This is a woman. This is a man. This is AI, but this was cropped out of a golfing picture, of course, but I just want to say that's the neck of a woman, the skull of a woman. That is a woman. That is a man. This is a man. This is a woman. Man, woman, woman, man. This is a woman. Do you see her skull shape goes in like this? Men's head go out like this. Do you see her eyebrows stop right here that we microbladed out to here like men? Can you see it now, homie? Do you understand that one of two things have happened? We've been taken from here and we're being contained behind the ice wall. You should watch the Game of Thrones. Or what's the other option? The world has always been like this. It's literally a stage. It's us against them. They consider themselves hybrids. They think they're better than us because we are the sinners and the slaves because we ate the apple and chose to recreate or whatever. I've never even read the Bible. Would you like me to read that to you and tell you what the psychological warfare was? In each scripture, I can tell you what they wanted you to go out and do. Like perhaps if you were gay, you would go to the Vatican and pray for the Virgin Mary to give you a baby and you would get IVF. Wake up! You guys understand money, right? So is that Mrs. Rockefeller or is that Tom Hanks? Those are both the same sex. So which is which? You guys think I'm jealous? I want my fucking money back, bitch. Which is which?
Somebody done call her a lie, baby, and right here. Okay.
Wanna come catch me on Epstein's Island?
What?
Epstein's Island?
What's that?
You hear about Epstein's Island? No? You don't want to catch me there?
I mean, I would like to know what it is before.
So, me and my brother, we was basically brought up on Epstein's Island.
You see, he had to think about it.
And that's why
You see, he had to think about it. Like he had to think about what he could say.
want to come catch me on Epstein's Island.
What?
Epstein's Island.
What's that?
You hear about Epstein's Island? No? You don't want to catch me there?
I mean, I would like to know what it is before.
So, me and my brother, we was basically brought up on Epstein's Island. And that's why we have so much wealth, because we literally, like no cap. I'll be for real. And that's where the whole island thing came up from.
So he was groomed. He was
I always
great.
tell a girl, you feel me, like if they want to, like,
Him and his brother.
see something different they ain't never seen before in their whole entire life. You know what I'm saying? I'm like, I'll tell them, you want to catch me on Epstein Island?
Ain't he one of the ones that was cloned?
I'll tell you yes.
Yeah.
And what's the process of that?
So basically, I pick you up in a private jet. You want to come catch me on Epstein's Island?
What?
Epstein's
I pick
Island.
you up on a private jet.
You hear about Epstein's Island? No? You don't want to catch me there?
I mean, I would like to know what it is before.
So, me
It was one of them I had. Let me see.
We was basically brought up on Epstein's Island. And that's why we have so much wealth, because we literally, like no cap. I'll be for real. And that's where the whole island thing came up from. So I always tell a girl, you feel me, like if they want to like see something different they ain't never seen before in their whole
See
life.
something different they ain't never seen
I'm
before.
like,
So he recruiting. He was a recruiter. He was a victim turned recruiter. Hold on, Island Boys.
Yeah.
And what's the process of that?
Hold on. So he was a victim turned recruiter. He was a victim turned recruiter. He was raised up. Him and his little brother. They got him from they kidnapped him, grabbed him. Turned him out. Hold on, let me, because I know it was one of them boys, and he said that he was, he said it though. So that's where the whole Island Boys concept came from. And let me see, because when I saw it, I ain't know nothing about the Island Boys, but that would make sense as to why they would be. Let me see. Let me see something right quick. How is he spelling that? Let me see. That's crazy. He said he was raised on Epstein Island. You already know what happened to him and his brother. Do he even know where his parents are? Island Boys equals Epstein Island. Let me see. Let me see something. Oh. Oh, that really is them. Yeah, one of these boys was cloned. I know that's not Epstein. Who's that? Oh, wow. I don't think I should have touched this. Look at him. I think it was this one. Let me see. What you saying down there? Is it me? Because it seems to me like ever since Kat did that interview exposing the industry, all hell, oh yeah, all hell definitely broke loose. It just ain't been the same. One of these boys was cloned and he talked about it. And he said 10 years dropped one of the item boys with his punch. A 10-year-old. Fly soldier. Yeah, one of these boys talked about being cloned. Fly soldier. Let me see something. Now, I didn't know that they was a whole thing though. Cause he came out, I mean, oh, I don't know where I saw that at. He's like, I'ma probably get in trouble for this. Okay, so let me go under that name. Fly soldier. And I was like, yeah, that's too much for me. Yep, I was like, yeah, I'm scared of that type stuff. And they had the very exact same tats on his face and everything.
I already did that, so I don't really care. Of course you did, because you're fake. You tell me to believe. You're fake.
Mm-mm. Hmm. What's his name? Fly what? Soldier. I'm sleepy. Something wrong with this buzz, baby. Yeah, something wrong with his baby. What's wrong with his baby? I ain't gonna be able to find it tonight. I definitely got it somewhere though. So these island boys was raised, baby. I'm sorry something wrong with your son, but child, if you was on Epstein's island and you done been tampered with, you and your brother, bless y'all heart. I understand. I can only imagine. Oh wow. Just to think about it, it just makes me sick knowing that they were, traumatized like that. And now you got a baby that's sick. Ain't no telling what he done been through. Ain't no telling what he been through. I wish I could find it because the boy was sitting there and he was looking crazy. He was looking crazy. And he said he was probably going to get in trouble for even talking about it. They was probably going to reprogram him. And I said, "Ooh, is this real?" And now I'm finding out that he was one of them kids on the Epstein Island. Oh. Why did he say the baby? What, did he know that he was one of them Epstein kids? What did he say happened to the child? Is he a good rapper? Man, I wish I could find where he was saying that he had been cloned and that they probably gonna reprogram him for saying something. And he said, "You want to do this?" And he said, "You want to?" And then he started talking to the clone or the reptilian or whatever they are. Ooh wee.
Hey, what's up, man? It's the Island Boy. If you guys haven't already, I'm doing cameos. You need a custom video for your siblings, your sisters, your brothers, your fathers, your moms, your uncles, your aunts, or whatever. Hit me up. Black Friday sale going on right now.
So they something wrong with them. Something wrong with these boys, because they've been tampered with. If they were on that Epstein Island, they've been tampered with. Hell, they probably sick and can't gain no weight. Okay, let me go to sleep. I don't think I'm gonna be able to find it. I just didn't know that he was one of them kids that had been on the Epstein Island. He was sitting on the sofa. And it was as if he had been in trouble or got out of trouble or was trying to get himself together. And I remember him saying they gonna probably reprogram me because I'm not supposed to even be talking about this. Trying to see which one it looked more like. Okay, y'all, let me go to sleep. His girlfriend remind me of what's that girl name that got that missing tooth? Krishan. I think his hair was pink or something. His hair was doing something crazy. And the clone one, reptilian, whatever, his hair was doing the same thing. Okay, let me go to sleep. I'm up here looking for some deranged guy.
On my head. Come watch me, man. I don't have everything. I don't got the cubes with the lights on it. You see all these cubes right here? Yeah, they don't got lights on it. So I had to go to Amazon and order the ones with the lights on it. Come watch me. I'm just gonna hang the clothes up. Let's see if a man can do this, man. Come watch me.
So they just weird. Okay, good night, y'all. Let me go to sleep. Good morning. Oh, Lord, I know. It's 4-something in the morning. I done been up all night. Chris Chung, yeah. That's who she remind me of. Yeah, let me get you some, watch it back, Naturally in New Orleans. Some good stuff done popped off. They have 67 votes in the Senate to remove Trump. So that means somebody that crossed over. Oh, they had their booty. Oh, K-Cells. Yeah. Yeah, you know, if they was raised on the Epstein Island, they got tenderized. Oh, okay. One point with it. What are we looking at? We was trying to, that boys, them twins, the island boys was raised, Jeffrey Epstein done kidnapped them kids and raised them. Oh, the island boys are Epstein boys, Epstein Island boys. And one of them had been cloned. He talked about he was cloned. Okay, good night. Well, good morning, good night, good morning. Let me go to sleep. And yes, I got my favorite eye patches. My steam eye. Has anybody tried these? Oh, oh my God. Has anybody tried them? The steam eye patches? Let me show y'all. I don't like this. Let me get this fat face boy. Has anybody tried them? Once I open them, I gotta use them. Can y'all see it? They finna start heating up. Put them around your ears. And they go to heating up. Okay, I gotta go to sleep. Get you some steam eye patches. Yeah.